Hello everyone and welcome back to the vengeful but compassionate comic vault. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me a whole year later, I don't know where the time has gone, it's my good buddies, Austin the Day Ghost and Kareem the Kareem.
I'm the Kareem.
Not
Welcome,
the
guys.
cream, the Kareem.
Thanks so much, the Kareem of the crop. I've made that joke before. Thank you guys so much.
People
I
in high
know.
school used to call me Kareem Soda.
I'm sorry, who did?
People in high school used to call me Kareem Soda.
Well, and like you have a fairly common name, don't you? Like
That's really funny.
I'm sure you knew other Kareems, right?
I've never known.
Oh, really? I knew a few people in school named Kareem.
Oh, Kareem is frozen up now.
Oh, no.
We're off to a
Kareem
great
so
start.
Took him down.
Kareem, are you with us? Well, this is good.
Blink twice, you're with us.
We're off to a spectacular start here. Kareem, try to hang up and come back in if you can. I'll just go ahead and kind of start us off, and hopefully he's able to get back in, or actually I'm not sure how to handle this right now. Hold on. Sorry, everybody.
It's not a Geekvolution show without technical difficulties.
Yeah,
that I've learned.
It's really not. Although this one's not my fault.
As far as we know.
I don't think it's my fault. I don't see how. Okay, so I'm hanging up, and no, he didn't leave. I ejected him. Let's see if I can bring him back. Kareem, are you with us again? That was weird. And now it's a black screen.
Oh, no.
I'm so sorry. So weird.
That's
My computer just went like the Matrix on me.
Are you good? Is it working now?
It's working now.
Okay, great. Well, we'll try to just launch into this now. Sorry, folks, for the 2 minutes of nothing so far. So apparently, it's an annual event now to talk about Nightfall on Geekvolution, and we really didn't mean for it to be this long. I don't know where the time went, but we are back finally to talk about the first part of KnightQuest. We're gonna try not to wait months and months before the next one. And KnightQuest is broken up into 2 sections, and one is a lot longer than the other. So this will be a lengthy discussion, I'm sure, but we are going to talk, just like we did with Nightfall, very overviewy. We're not going to get real bogged down with the details with this. We're going to go chronologically after we give you kind of our just basic thoughts and takeaways from this, and just kind of hit each of the major stories and say kind of yay or nay, and talk about a couple of the major things with each of these. So the Crusade is starring Jean-Paul Valley and gets into his adventures with the Batmantle and his internal struggle, trying to decide if he's about vengeance and the Saint Dumas stuff, or if he is about justice and the Bruce Wayne Batman side of things. And then there is another section to this that wasn't traded for the longest time that I'm not sure any of us have read before. That's The Search. And that is Bruce Wayne's own crusade outside of the Batsuit, initially in a wheelchair. I don't know if he stays in the wheelchair, going to try to find the kidnapped Dr. Kinsolving and Robin's father. And I don't know what else happens in that, but I know that's where it all starts. And these things are happening concurrently. So there are a couple places in what we're reading tonight where we kind of step over and see that for like a brief second, but we're not actually dealing with any of that material now. So when we get into that later, that'll be a shorter video. I'm sure we won't have quite as much to discuss with that, and there won't be as many interlude kind of random in-between stories. And then eventually we'll talk about Night's End, which is also just 1 volume, I think. And then there's Troika, and I think another story that's like aftermath stuff after that we should probably also cover. So I think Nightfall ultimately for us is probably going to be like 5 or 6 streams. But we're covering the same page count, or maybe even a little bit more, as we did with Nightfall here. So right away, let me say, guys, this is going to feel like, or at least it does to me, like trying to talk about an entire season of television. And when I say season, I don't mean like a current modern kind of season, like 10 episodes. This is like freaking Smallville. This is like 20, this is like a 22 episode season of television. Did you guys have that experience with it?
This is like G1 Transformers Season 2, 64 episode season.
You think it's even lengthier, yeah.
It always gets me to ask the question of like, what is a normal night in Gotham City? Like, how much crap does Batman have to deal with like every night?
Well, it's like Arkham. It's, you know, like every like 8 issues is one night, really.
It makes you really sympathize with where Bruce Wayne is at the beginning of Nightfall, where you're like, I don't know how he hasn't gotten to his lowest point earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's like I do the dork thing of like, you know, imagining Bruce's life like chronologically. Like we all do that, right? Like we do that with comic book heroes and stuff. Like, okay, in Spider-Man's life, Gwen dies and this happens and blah blah blah. You do it with Bruce, like this is the part where, you know, his back gets broken and he meets his match, and some guy takes up the mantle and things like that. And it's like, you know, there's so much stuff that happens after this. It's like, how does he do all this? It really makes you think.
The nice thing is that Batman hasn't had a status quo in like 15 years, so he just doesn't have a regular life anymore.
That's true. That's why extra media stuff can't stop going to like Court of the Owls, because that's the last thing in comics anybody remembers.
Yeah, that's true.
And then after that, it'll be metal, I guess, where we can't stop using the Batman Who Laughs. But like, that's kind of it. Obviously not for comic fans. There's some other things in the middle of that, but
Yeah, well, and even that, like, Court of the Owls is the start of every Batman story is an event instead of just like a linear thing happening.
Yep. Which is ironic given the point you just made. That they're all events now, but it feels like there's no status quo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there's no like in between. It's just event, 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 event.
Yeah.
But anyways, KnightQuest. The
Yeah.
original event.
So when I say this feels like a season of television, it's like early 2000s television where you've got an overarching story, but it's interrupted a lot with kind of singular one-off adventures, some of which stick with you, many of which don't, or at least don't for me, and are kind of fill-in things. You got fill-in issues in the same way you have fill-in episodes of television, and it just really feels kind of rushed and all crammed in, and like we're trying to meet deadlines, and everything has to revolve around this obviously, of course, this current status quo and Jean-Paul Valley, and I also feel like there's a little bit of kind of conflict between the writers where not everybody agrees on what exactly Jean-Paul Valley is and what his voice is and who he ought to be. And so it feels like you have kind of an inconsistent writer's room, and it feels like one of those TV shows. But I want to give you guys the floor and ask you what your experience was with this. So let me start with Kareem. Kareem, how does this stack up to you next to Nightfall? And the main thing I wanted to ask you is, do you still hold, like you did with Nightfall, to the idea that we are kind of satirizing the dark, gritty 90s anti-hero Avenger, or are we just kind of embracing it at this point?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a little bit before. I always view Nightfall as like an essential Batman read. Like that's a thing that happened. And I was like Austin, where I read it like a couple of years ago, and I was like, this is really good. And I haven't read it in so long, like probably since I was a teenager. And now I'm just like, wow, it is really they cheesed it up with the 90s. And I think I mentioned this before in the first Nightfall, like part one. We were doing that a lot in the 90s, where it's like it's the extreme era with Image and Spawn and all that stuff, where it's all these anti-heroes that have to be violent and strap belts onto their thighs for some reason and have spikes everywhere. And Cap, I think we spoke about that with reviewing Kingdom Come, where you had the status quo of superhero comics, like, you know, in DC and also in Marvel, where they're trying to challenge that notion of, you know, basically that extreme era, that wave, that Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane. You know, if they had worked in comics, it'd be Zack Snyder and Michael Bay. You know, that kind of like in your face, just all action kind of movement. But anyways, you know, they had people in the industry like Mark Waid and stuff like that that really sought to challenge what it was to be a superhero. And, you know, is Batman not cool for not killing and being violent and things like that? So I think this strikes me as like, okay, it's either a balance of like, are we going that way to the 90s extreme stuff, or are we focusing on Batman psychology of like, you know, heavy is the head that wears the cowl. You know, what is Bruce's psychology and what makes him distinct from somebody else who can't handle this? And the interesting parts go there, and then the 90s parts is like, this is hard to read.
So you feel like it's more dated than it was the last time you read it?
Yeah, definitely. And that comes out in the art, but I can have historical perspective on things. But the 90s is just like, just really bad.
One of the worst decades for entertainment, no matter what Cap says.
I definitely saw,
I say it's more complicated than that, but I understand why you say that.
I definitely saw what Austin was talking about the first time, where he hates Bane and stuff.
But
Yeah,
you
that
have
was
to
really
admit,
disappointing.
it's a lot more egregious here than it was in the first part of Nightfall.
Yeah.
There's a lot of better storytelling there, and I feel like the cheesier stuff is more kind of tongue-in-cheek. Here, I feel like the two things you're talking about, tell me if you agree with this, I feel like they're very much at odds in a lot of places, where it just can't decide which of those things it's more interested in, and I feel like there's almost a censorship sort of thing, which is weird, because this is a very bloody book, relatively, for other things going on in DC. I mean, I say that, like, this period we were willing to go there a lot more, but when I say censorship, I mean, I remember Jean-Paul Valley's problem, or the problem Bruce Wayne has with him, being this is the Batman that kills. I did not remember this is not the Batman that kills, he just thinks about it real hard, and somehow, no matter how brutal he is, nobody ever dies. Like, I already have a hard time buying that with Batman, right? With like the way he knocks around criminals and he just gets lucky, nobody ever dies. This guy, every other panel, he's shooting shuriken into people's hands.
He's got spiky nails.
And everybody's fine.
We'll talk about it, but I think somehow that works because the character's conflicted, and he literally has like different spirits talking to him. So
that's a good
point. It does track, and I think he becomes more so that the Batman who kills thing by Night's End. Like, I think that because we finally get to a place by the end of this where he like has killed somebody.
Yeah,
and I think when we get to Night's End,
even that's debatable, and I like
it goes more.
I like how debatable it is, because I mean, he doesn't kill that guy. We'll talk about it. He doesn't kill that guy any more than Bruce at the end of Batman Begins. I'm not gonna kill you, but I don't have to save you. And like, imagine if this Gordon was the Gordon in that movie. I had that thought where I was like, I'm not sure if Batman Begins Gordon would even approach this the same way. That was kind of interesting. Austin, what were your big takeaways from this? Did you enjoy it more than Kareem? How'd you feel about it?
So, yeah, I read all three, like Nightfall, Night's End, KnightQuest, not in that order, when Dark Knight Rises came out. And Nightfall, when we reread it last year, I remembered every single issue, like sometimes down to panel layout, sometimes down to dialogue. Like, there was at least something in every single issue that I remembered. Knight's Quest, there was one thing I remembered, and at the time I remember thinking like, wow, Nightfall is awesome, and then Knight's Quest, kind of like, it's not as good, like, it's okay, and then Night's End was even more of that, maybe even less, I'm not sure. So reading it now, Yeah, I did absolutely have the kind of dated 90s stuff. And I think one of the biggest issues is that when you look at it in the broad strokes of the entire thing from start to finish, I do think it is ultimately a criticism of like the 90s image stuff. But they also have to dive into it, and it's a little bit of the like having your cake and eating it too here, I think. And we maybe go a little bit too far into that, and I can never really tell issue to issue if it's supposed to be satirical of that or not. And I think it becomes more of an issue here, which I mean, it does make sense when that's your main character, but it is kind of harder to read in the, with all of it together. It's a little strange.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem is like you said, issue to issue. If you're reading these month to month or just the occasional stray 22 pages, if it is supposed to be, and there's some places where it's clearly obviously satirical, especially when we get into the Joker makes a movie about evil 90s Batman, like that whole business. Everything about that is satirical, both satirizing comics and movies, and is super meta about the whole thing. And there are other places where it's almost that blatant about it as well. But if you were looking at like singular issues just as a piece, that would not always come through, I don't think.
No, exactly. And another thing that I had reading this is that even if I still had some of those issues with it, I find that a lot of the story is just issue to issue really dull. And I think this book's also really hurt by me having just read Denny O'Neil's Iron Man a few months ago now, because that's your kind of like your hero drops off, he gets replaced, and then he comes back later on thing. And it's obviously not the exact same story. Rhodey's not John Paul Valley, but it's done way better.
Yeah, like who would be coming to Rhodey in hallucinations telling him that he's that he's supposed to be an avenging angel?
It would be Tony Stark's secretary, who's a big character at that point. She'd be like, "Stop killing people."
It's a talking tank.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, importantly, because I remember reading something, the fans hated this. Like, if you read like old, I forget what you call them, like newsletters or whatever.
Like letters pages?
Yeah, letters pages. They were like, when is Bruce coming back?
That's actually something I was going to bring up, funny enough, because I was reading that Iron Man stuff on Marvel Unlimited, which has the letters pages, and this doesn't in trade. And a lot of people really liked the change in Iron Man when I was reading the letters pages. There was a lot of like, "Oh, you made Iron Man good. Like, can Tony Stark never come back, please?" And reading this, I was like, there's no way. There's no way anyone was saying that about Batman. Like, I refuse to believe it.
Well, and isn't it such an interesting contrast looking at how people felt about, and thanks for bringing that up, Kareem, felt about Jean Paul Valley. And let me say this real quick, too. It's weird because people really liked Nightfall, and I think people at the time kind of liked the suit. I don't think people made fun of it as hard as we do now with just the impracticality of it and all of that. Again, because that stuff was so popular right then.
Yeah,
but
kind of everything.
But you're right. He was in the suit too long for people, I think was a lot of it. I think it was a novelty that wore off very quickly. And isn't the contrast between what happened with that and Reign of the Supermen really interesting? That, like, you had 4 people taking over the mantle of Superman, and none of them, obviously, were actually Superman. And people ate that up, like, with a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
And it was also hard-edged 90s stuff.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. I don't really know as much about Death of Superman.
Or at least that's my perspective from living it, is that was a status quo that people were really into and really enjoyed at the time. And I'm sure if you go back to the letters pages, there's probably some, discontent here and there, but it wasn't what Kareem's describing with this.
Well, it's probably because, like, right before that, you have the weird blue Superman.
Yeah,
they're like, "Oh, it's better than that."
What do you mean?
We were doing that.
Superman turns blue?
Well, that's later.
Oh, is it later? For some reason, I thought it was before.
No. That's their grasping at straws, trying to come up with the next big event to get people to start reading the book again, like they did with Death of Superman. That's like 97, 98. That's actually just after the marriage. So they weren't, not to talk to Superman too much, but they weren't allowed to marry off Superman because they wanted to do that eventually in the TV show. So that's why they kill him. They had this board of different ideas, and one of them was marry him. They were about to do that, and then another one was kill him, and that was a joke, and then they ended up actually doing it. It was the most popular thing ever in comics, right? And then a few years later, they finally married him, and we're talking like a couple of months later, he turns into pure energy, and they do the Superman Blue thing. It's preposterous.
That's what marriage does to a man. I don't know.
We all
Exactly. Real quick before we start trudging through this, what would you guys say were kind of the highs and lows of this? Like, just pick a story that you were actually kind of invested in, and then another one that you just really wanted to put down and wished that we weren't having to do this homework.
I feel like we're gonna have similar things, but the cowboy story. I mean, like the twin cowboy people. I want to say that they were trying to make them his Two-Face, because he has his own rogues gallery, which I think is cool. Like,
yeah, I just wish the rogues gallery was cool, because they all feel like low rent, like second string Spawn villains, and you don't want to be a second string Spawn villain.
But it's the thing that Austin said, where it's like they're trying to do two things at once, where I think they're trying to be like, yeah, see, he sucks. Like, anybody who steps into this role that's not Bruce is gonna be like this bad. But I feel like they were trying to give him his like rogues gallery, and he was those cowboys were trying to be like Two-Face or something like that. And Abattoir, I'm gonna butcher that name, was his Joker.
Yeah, and that went on for way too long. And the payoff is good, but God, did I have to read it for eight issues? Like,
yeah.
And there's so many tie-ins, like different titles and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mentioned to Cap off camera that this kind of does the thing that the Denny O'Neil Iron Man does, where it goes, okay, you have a new version of the hero, so here's like the new rogues gallery, and then that makes it a way bigger deal when like the Joker here and the Mandarin and that storyline, like when they come in, and it's like, oh man, now you have to deal with like the previous version's like main villain. Like, how can you even deal with them? You know, it's like this huge thing. I think that's what they were trying to do, but a lot of that those new villains are just kind of lame, like you guys have said.
Well, and the sad thing is, one of the reasons, and don't get me wrong, because the story is amazing, and of course this is the one that I would put above everything else. The what is it, 2 or 3 part Joker story. When that whole thing comes in, part of the reason I was suddenly perked up wasn't just wasn't I think what it's supposed to be, and what you're talking about, Austin, where it's like he's been dealing with his own rogues gallery, and can he handle Batman's main villain? It's okay, finally a villain that's fun to read,
and we're into just a traditional Batman story. Like, yeah, Bruce Wayne could easily be the Batman there, with the exception of obviously there's a point of that by the end, but that plot doesn't necessarily have to be a different Batman.
No, that's true. Yeah, the payoff, the ending is very different because it's with this Batman.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that's more traditional, that story.
Yeah, and again, I have that kind of nerdy thing where it's like I track Bruce's life, like through stories, and Scott Snyder has this thing where he says Gotham, whoever steps into the role, Gotham gives you your worst nightmares. So that's why Dick Grayson has his own villains and stuff in Jim Gordon's son, and I kind of had that with Jean Paul, where it's like literally reflecting him. But I love how the Joker is just like, you're not him, like immediately knows, and Selina knows, like the villains that are closest to him in different ways.
Well, we'll have to talk about that, because there's certain characters where I really bought them getting it right away. Other characters I didn't understand why they didn't question it more. and other characters where I was like, yeah, you should know this. I don't understand why you don't know this. And we'll have to get into that. But yeah, I think one of my problems with this is there's a lot of stuff. I think I'm having with KnightQuest what Austin had with Nightfall as far as Bane goes. A lot of stuff that on paper and thematically is really interesting, but just not executed in a way that's entertaining or really sucks me in. So, Kareem, when you're talking about, and I'm really glad you said that. That's such a terrific point. That anybody that comes into the mantle or goes and fights in Gotham is going to have their worst nightmare thrown at them. Jean-Paul Valley's foes are mostly twofold, or both of these things at the same time. They're either a character that also has some sort of programming that they're like not fighting against while he's having this internal conflict, and so they're like a dark mirror for him, like what he would be if he didn't try to find his humanity, right? And also people who either have been traumatized by being abused as children or abused children or both. And his tragic backstory is basically child abuse. Like, Batman's tragic backstory is his parents were killed in front of him. I'm always, like, paralleling the three characters. And we're away from Bane now, but I'm still thinking about Bane a lot because because Jean Paul is still kind of like the midpoint between the two. And then Bane is, like, even farther with the child abuse thing, where he's born in a prison and then kind of has to raise himself. And then this is a guy who's abused as a child, not physically, but in being used for a like religious cult and programmed to be a weapon. And so his villains, reflect those two big things in his past and in his internal workings, but is it all that interesting on the page? Like, very often it's not. His rogues gallery is Arbitoire and the Corrosive Man and Gunhawk, that's just an image character right there. The Trigger Twins and Tallyman. Tallyman's probably the closest to a traditional Batman villain, even though he's bizarre. And he's the one that's most got the child abuse thing.
Well, he's the most image with that art.
Wait, wasn't there
with his, like, slinky arms?
And he's got the giant guns.
Yeah.
Wait, is that the brother and sister? The Hawk and Bunny or whatever?
Yes, Gunhawk, and I forget her name, but she doesn't have, like, a supervillain name. She just has a name.
They look like Captain America meets, like...
Cyclops?
Yeah, Cyclops, yeah.
Yeah, he's got the... Yeah, that's the most 90s image in the book, I think. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's just that guy's face.
Yeah, and with him, obviously, like, it's got the 90s thing. It even has the thing where what he wants is just a giant gun, so he can have the biggest gun of all.
There's no way they're not making fun of all that on purpose with that guy.
No, I can't imagine so. But I was thinking a lot with that of Bloodsport, with the Superman issue, and I think it's a Wolfman issue in Post-Crisis Superman, where he gets shot with the kryptonite bullet, where, like, that issue is really good and that villain's really cool, and then here, like, I don't know, they're just gun people. They're not especially interesting.
Well, I really find when I was about to call him Asriel, Jean-Paul Valley goes down and just beats common thugs more compelling than his actual rogues gallery.
Yeah,
like,
I agree. Yeah.
Me too.
So cool, like, especially juxtaposed to Bruce's thoughts and, like, how Bruce is so driven, but yet he has honor and compassion, and then Jean-Paul Valley's just brainwashed and just militarized and radicalized by Gotham, and he can't handle it. It's just fast.
Well, I think the idea is that it's supposed to be a forced... I really appreciate Kareem because he's just setting me up for all the points I wanted to make somewhere. It's really nice of him to do that. It's like I'm playing tennis with Kareem. There is...
I'm the ref.
No, Kareem's gonna win, isn't he? No,
Oh yeah.
there's this, I think, clear attempt at giving Jean-Paul Valley the same internal conflict that Batman usually has, but the wrong side is winning out with him, and that's the way in which he's like the Dark Mirror, and it's a forced internal conflict. So Batman's comes naturally from his past, where he's trying to decide if he is more about vengeance or justice. Is it that he is too compelled? It's a selfish thing for him that he's got to fight bad guys on the streets, or is he actually trying to make the world a better place, and does he really care about people? And the compassion side generally wins out with Batman. And he's not on a nightly basis conflicted to the point where he's got a devil and an angel on his shoulders arguing about it like you have with Jean-Paul Valley. With Jean-Paul Valley, it's still, it comes from his background, but it's this more like forced imposed, like obvious in your face thing. I'm not even criticizing when I say that. It's just it just is where it's this programming that he's fighting against, and ultimately the vengeance is winning out instead.
And ultimately, that's why Batman fundamentally needs a Robin. That's really the drama of the characters. Every night, this guy puts on a costume and fights nightmares, and it's like, will they pull him in? Will he succumb to that darkness?
And isn't it interesting that this one pushes Robin away?
Literally.
I want to say almost as if he knows that. I don't think he possibly could. One of the things that makes him less interesting than he could be, and I'm not sure how you get around this, is that he doesn't really have any real personal motivation. It's all trying to figure out who he's supposed to be. It's almost like the Clark Kent Smallville problem of trying to figure out his destiny. And it's sympathetic to some degree, but I think it gets really redundant. And at some point, I just want him to kind of make a decision and figure out who he is. I think that's the problem with this being the status quo for as long as it is. Like, reading this as a piece is a little disingenuous. It's a little unfair talking about it like this, because what we're essentially reading in one sitting is a year and a half, couple of years. I don't know how long this went. Was it just a year?
I want to say 2 years, something like that.
Like status
That's what I
quo
was
for a character. So this really isn't intended, even though it's got, a name plastered over it. It doesn't really read like it's full-on intended to be read like this. Like, some of this, there is certainly a in arc, like, in some of it I buy and some of it I don't, like where we get at certain places. But like when you get to the end of this, Jean-Paul Valley has more or less kind of defined who he is, and that he's trying to be more the Batman side, but he will allow bad people to die. He's making clear marks in the sand, right? Of like, finally, but it takes forever to finally get there. And the problem with this is there's just whole sections that you could clear out, and it probably reads better.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the thing of we weren't writing for trade back then. This isn't a beginning, middle, end story. This is the status quo. Like, it's just kind of how we did comics. But I think with Asbats versus traditional Batman, it's kind of interesting because Pattinson Batman at the beginning is like a more refined version of Asbats, where he's not as like 90s, doesn't know where he is yet thing. Like, he's very much like, focused on what he's doing, but he has that thing where he doesn't have like a secret identity really. Like, he's just always Batman, and he's a lot more violent, and he's just, he's on this crusade for vengeance. And by the end of that movie, he becomes actual Batman. And I think it's kind of interesting that there's kind of that parallel. Matt Reeves has definitely read this material.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. But what makes that kind of easier to swallow in the moment, I guess, is just that you have a clear, like you said, crusade for vengeance that becomes a crusade for justice. And this is a conflicted man who does not know which of those it should be. And that's because he's not really a whole person in the same way that Al Simmons in Spawn isn't. And that's another place, that's another way that we're going to a lot of the anti-heroes in early 90s comics. We just love amnesia plots. We just love blank slate characters who are totally undefined, and what's supposed to be compelling about them is they murder everything they see until they finally pick a side.
You know what the big difference between Spawn and Asbats is, though, Cab? When Asbats gets hit by acid, he doesn't tie his suit back together with shoestring. He just immediately fixes it.
I thought you were going to say he didn't punch his wife and give her a miscarriage, but...
No, that's in Knight's End. We just haven't gotten there
we just haven't gotten to that part yet. Okay. Is it also going to be a retcon where we're going to find out that he's not the sexually frustrated teenager that he seems here, and he actually has slept with a woman, and he also gave her a miscarriage? Is that what happens?
Exactly. Yeah.
Look, if this all sounds crass, it's the material, man. It's the material. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing.
It's 90s, man. It's extreme.
It's extreme.
Asbats, he's gonna ride a skateboard, bro.
We don't need no stinking comics code authority anymore.
I just love that. I mean, as much as we laugh about the costume, if this was 1993, I would have that figure. Like, that's pretty cool back then. But I just love as a character that he keeps updating it, and it gets more and more ridiculous. Like, his cape is like spikes by the end of it.
That
and he's got
also
the big
feels
like ammo thing that connects to his back, which is I don't think they ever really pointed out, but that's the Bane thing, right? Like he's got the tube from his arm to his back.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess so. That might, and I know I can't help but go to Spawn because of my own background, but keep in mind, that is the most popular of this kind of stuff that's going on right then. So there's no way these guys aren't, like Alan Grant, Dixon, etc. There's no way these guys aren't looking at that and aren't responding to it because that's the most blatant and popular example of that all. So the reason I say that is because I believe in like I love to ask these guys about this. I believe that the constant evolution of the costume is a direct response to that happening with Spawn.
It most likely is. I mean, that, like you said, it's the central thing that's creating all these waves. It literally changed the industry. So that's like right in the front lines of that movement. So
and with all the guns and stuff, like there's that panel in issue 5 or 6 where Al Simmons like finds all of his old guns and he straps them all on himself so that he doesn't have to use his power and run down the clock. And there are places where Asbat has a ridiculous amount of guns, but then like his cape is changing and.
Yeah, and he's fully bulletproof too. Like his cape's bulletproof. I don't even know how that works.
I just love the batarang projectiles.
Yeah, and the voice activation.
Yeah.
I asked Austin about it because while I was reading it early on, I could not figure out why he was doing that, and later it becomes clear that it's voice activation. And maybe he was doing it in Nightfall, and I just couldn't remember because it's been a year. I didn't go back and reread all of that, but he. At one point, he, like, calls a move, and I'm like, what are you, a Power Ranger? Like, why are you saying what you're doing as you're doing it? And then it turns out it's, like, he's got a program that recognizes his voice and does, which was real futuristic back then.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They
Voice
give him
recognition.
his own Batmobile in the sewers, don't they?
Well, they give him a bat train,
Oh,
and
yeah,
we'll
bat
talk about that friggin' craziness. It's real quick, too. I'm like, you jumped the... I appreciate if they're going to jump the shark that they do it immediately.
My favorite thing... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kareem. Go ahead.
Sorry. Keep in mind, Batman Returns just came out, and Batman has, like, a bat sewer thing in that movie.
That is true. That is true. The best thing with the bat train is that John Paul Valley's Batman for like 2 days, and he's just walking around the Batcave, and he walks down some stairs, and he's like, "Whoa, there's a train down here." Bruce Wayne probably doesn't even know this exists. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he knows everything that's in his headquarters.
Well, you know what he says? He goes, we'll start looking at panels here in a minute. He goes, I think Harold just built this on his off time.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
know about this.
Okay. And he's got a real sleek design for that, too. So I don't know why Harold's not Batman. Like, And then what are the odds that the moment, this is one of the most contrived things in this book, and that's maybe saying something. What are the odds that he stumbles upon the Bat Train, starts just taking it for loops, trying to decide what he's going to do with it, and like, oh, it's going to get me to places in the city faster. He's got his own fast travel system, right? And then, what are the odds that that happens right before there's a, like, train holdup that he has to stop?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that we're setting up, I think even in the same issue. I think we're setting up
we set
the
it up in the
twins.
same issue, and then he goes off on you get the Robin adventure, and then you get another adventure that has nothing to do with that, and then when the Trigger twins come back, I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot all about these guys. It's been like 6 months in comics since we saw these guys. Maybe not that long, because the Robin issues are happening concurrently, but it's been at least 3 or 4.
I didn't think about it until you just said it, but there's a lot of vehicle stuff at the beginning of this, because the Robin story is all about like car thieves.
So many toys, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that Robin has a car.
Yeah, I forgot about that too.
Yeah. Well, there were, I think there was like a toy, maybe it wasn't specifically the Redbird, but something really, really similar to that around this time. But like Robin getting his own vehicle was like a big deal in the 90s.
All I could think of was Gordon being like, hey, Robin, you're definitely a child. Can you prove that you have a driver's license? And then being like, I don't have a Robin driver's license.
Yeah, do you guys? Yeah, what's that whole thing about? Where he's like, he's joyriding around in his red sleek Batmobile, and he's like, oh, I gotta be really careful because nobody can see me as Tim Drake driving this. But simultaneously, he has to wait to drive it until he's old enough to get his license, which kind of begs the question: why wait for the license? I mean, it's not like you have a license to be a vigilante and beat up thugs in the streets. So what, is he worried he's gonna get pulled over? And then what's his plan? Okay, officer, I'm Tim Drake. Please don't tell anyone.
Well, especially because he got his license a year early. He says, like, he got it because of his dad's handicap. He was like given a special reason for why he could have it
and it just
early.
came in the mail, and now he can go drive his Robin car. Doesn't make any sense.
The Batman just already has, because he knows this day is coming.
Don't you guys love comics?
Yeah, I do love comics.
So, let me, before we get too far into this, can you guys see the panels there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Kareem, did you have? I mean, both of you guys, but did you guys have the same thing I did with this, where certain writers, I tended to like their stuff more than other writers, and I would start seeing names and go, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna be as into this. Like, I tended to like until you got to the end, I tended to like the Dixon issues more and the Grant issues less. And in Nightfall, I had that with artists, but not with writers as much. And here, it felt like certain people really enjoyed writing Jean-Paul Valley, and other people either didn't want to be there or were struggling to come up with interesting stories that they wanted to write with this character. This did not feel like an easy thing to put together for some of these writers. Like, I could read frustration on the page.
Yeah, I just read it once. I didn't really notice that stuff. I mean, I'm kind of biased with Chuck Dixon. Like, I think he's so brilliant on Batman. But I didn't notice any like inconsistencies. Like, definitely with the art in the first Nightfall though. But Chuck Dixon is just like, he belongs in Gotham. Yeah,
well, and that's what I'm saying is his stuff is the best. In this, I think. And I usually like Grant, but I felt like he was real hit and miss with this. Some of the stuff toward the end where he's getting into like whether or not Valley is going to let himself start killing, and like the payoff for Abattoir or whatever, like that stuff is good. But before that, boy, there's places where, and I forget where exactly, we read 800 pages, but there are a couple of places where Jean-Paul Valley's dialogue is like really cringeworthy, and I think it's usually under Grant. It might be a couple of other writers, because we have some guest writers and various other people, but it's mostly those two.
I also thought that Doug Moenk. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Mensch.
I also
I call him Manx.
Mensch. Is that how
Okay,
it's
so no
pronounced?
one knows.
Oh,
No,
okay, no one knows.
apparently, no one knows.
Doug, get a better last name. uh, but I thought he had.
Look,
that
they're just
event where I
60s
thought a lot
Batman
of his
villains.
stories
It's
were-
a Dutch angle. Even the book can't take them seriously. I'm sorry, Austin. Good.
No, it's okay. I thought some of his stories were weaker too. I definitely thought Dixon was the best out of all the writers here, and Peter David, who showed up for one issue.
And that's one of the best issues.
Yeah,
But I was surprised to see him. I don't think I've ever read a Peter David Batman issue, and I basically still haven't because he doesn't really show up in that issue. Does
no,
he?
that's like the bottle episode of the season where it's in one room.
That's true. Yeah, and it's just Gordon and Penguin, and yeah, it's like an aside thing. It's one of the best episodes of the season, but it's technically skippable.
Yeah, we got to save money on the budget. Do one issue where it's in one room.
But I can't remember. Does Asbat even show up in that issue, or is it just them?
Yes, he shows up at the end.
Oh, that's right, with the bat signal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's coming back to me. Look at the ornamentation on their guns. I thought that was
It's good. The
Someone-
art overall is really good, with the exception of I think the Tallyman story. I think the art is excellent across the board.
So I don't go that far. There are a couple other places where I'm not as in love with it. I don't have the No Man's Land thing where there are issues where I'm just like, okay, I want to throw up. Could somebody just please hand me the script and I'll read that instead? But it is more inconsistent than the first volume of Nightfall. Like, even if you're liking it, would you agree with that, Austin? That like the art changes a lot more often. But then that's probably because it's between 6 books.
It does, and it is because of the book thing, I think. But I think the art is all good around the board, so it doesn't really bother me. With the exception of I didn't really like the art in that Tallyman story. Like I said, that's where it gets really 90s image.
Well, it's funny because some of that I actually liked just because it was so stylized and out there.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
think you start to get into some of the stuff that I'm not a big fan of, like the giant guns and like all that kind of stuff. Like even when you get to Gunhawk or whatever that guy's name is, he's got like a big Gatling gun. It's not the pistol that Tallyman was carrying. That guy's pistol was bigger than that Gatling gun.
that's a good point.
That guy had like Joker's pistol in Long Halloween ×6.
There's a guy out there that's the biggest Gunhawk fan. I'm sure of it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that there's like that one guy out there that's like, man, Gunhawk is my guy. I collect everything.
Find him. We're gonna interview him. We're gonna have him on a video, and he's gonna explain his love for Gunhawk. He's gonna
And
be
his
the
name
most.
is Rob Liefeld.
I was gonna say he's either gonna be the most patriotic American on the planet, or he's gonna think that kind of thing is so funny that's why he loves it. Do you guys like that we do the like super expressive eye thing with Azrael Batman that you often do with Batman? Like I love how comic book that is. It's especially funny in fun because it's in a metal mask. And his eyes, like, he can get surprised or, like, angry. And, like, does that kind of thing take you out, or do you guys like that because it's comics?
I've always liked that. I forget which artist it is. Archie Goodwin, maybe? I can't remember. But on the Iron Man DVD, there was a documentary about Iron Man comics. And one of, like, the earliest Iron Man artist talks about how he would do that, like the classic comic booky thing where you change the face to show emotion, even though it doesn't make sense because it's a metal mask, a metal helmet. And he was like, I don't care what anybody thinks. Like, I'm getting that emotion in. And I don't know, like, I think you kind of need that, especially for this where it's a full mask, so you don't have any expression.
Yeah, I tend to think the same thing. There's certain things where if you've been like indoctrinated with comic books, my eyes kind of gloss over it. I'm like, yeah, why not? Like, of course that would do that.
Austin,
Yeah, exactly.
did you notice that your favorite villain only appears as a cardboard cutout that gets stabbed by Shuriken?
I mean, at least he didn't show up to get jobbed by Bane, so I will never take the disservice that my boy Killer Croc gets. Although I did get my favorite Clayface, so I was happy that he showed up.
The Clayface issues are interesting. I didn't love that story, but I didn't hate it either. Like that, it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I was just glad that I recently read a Secret Origins issue for Not Spawn Year that retells and breaks down the origins of the first 3 Clayfaces and introduces Lady Clayface, and I was like, oh, thank God, because I've never seen 3 before, and it gives us the whole story of that guy and his containment suit and all that, and I was like, what are the odds? I read that 3 days before this, and I was like, thank God.
Yeah, Marshall Rogers is my favorite Batman artist, and when I was younger, I had the collection of just all of his Batman work, and he's the first artist to do Clayface 3, and I was like, wow, this Clayface is really scary.
Yeah.
Because he just touches you and you dissolve into clay instead of just being a shapeshifter, and I do like the shapeshifter Clayface, of course, but I really like how creepy the third Clayface is. It's really unique.
Well, I also thought it was kind of a fun idea to just take Lady Clayface and actually have her fall in love with one of the other ones, and they start after 3 they start doing a lot of fun like team ups with the Clayfaces. Why does Clayface have more versions than anything else in Batman? He has more versions than Mr. Freeze and Catwoman have actors in 66. Like, why is that? And why does Mr. Freeze have so many actions?
Than there are Jokers, because there's only 3 of those.
Yeah.
But Shing. Hey, that face at the top of the page there, that's Super McFarlane.
Yeah.
Just want to throw that out there.
Well, and Tallyman just looks like anorexic clown.
Yeah, that's true. So, how do you guys feel about Robin in this book overall? Because I would have liked to actually spend more time with him after the Robin issues. Again, just reading this as a piece kind of messes with me a little bit, because occasionally he'll sneak into the Batcave and do something, and he'll be, still weirded out by Jean-Paul Valley and worried that he's taking things too far and not liking that he's not letting him into the cave and into his life and taking him on patrol and all of that. But, like, he disappears for such long stretches that when he shows back up, it's kind of jarring. But I don't know how you guys feel about it.
No,
absolutely. Go ahead, Kareem. Go ahead.
I kind of had the same thing where he pops in and out of it. But like I said, Robin's supposed to thematically be the brightness, the humanity of Batman, and the fact that I like that he's trying to be there for him, and then Jean-Paul Valley just like completely rejects him violently, like almost killing this poor little kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I thought it was also weird that Tim Drake's dad is bound to a wheelchair like Bruce. Like, I didn't remember that at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that way, obviously before all this even started.
Yeah, I just thought it was a weird parallel.
Yeah, I wish we got more of Tim Drake moving forward. Like, not necessarily him showing up in the Batman stuff, because like you said, Kareem, I think you need that to show you kind of take the lighthearted part away from Batman. But it would have been nice, I thought, to just get more little asides with Robin, because I really liked his little bit. That was, I thought, the best of the early issues.
You mean his miniseries?
Yeah, his little like 2 issues.
Yeah, he's kind of joyriding his.
Especially, we cut back to
and...
him for like one panel, and he's like fighting people with Huntress, and he's got like a little thought bubble, like, "Man, I wish Batman was here." And I'm like, I want to see what's happening there.
That happens in a couple places. It's also weird when we do that with the Search. There's that panel where we cut to Bruce, where I guess they've already found Kinsolving and his dad, and I'm like, I don't even know why we're checking in with them right now. Like, it was out of nowhere. It was a cut-in panel that didn't seem to have anything to do with what was happening on the rest of the page.
It was probably leading to, like, they must have mixed these issues from, like, Crusade and The Search.
Oh, they did. They were coming out simultaneously, but I didn't understand why that particular panel was in that issue at all, because they didn't do that much, hardly any other plays.
Yeah, there's no real overlap, which is shocking.
So I don't know. I'm glad we're reading it like this, because I don't think I could keep it all in my head if we were going back and forth the way it was when it came out. I don't know how anybody keeps up with that.
Tim Drake 352 is probably my favorite Robin.
Yep.
Yep.
Mine too.
That's
It's
right.
sad that you have to say that now, but yeah.
Well, Cap's favorite Robin, we all know, is Damian Wayne.
Yeah,
There
Kareem
are
apparently
kids
doesn't
who
know me
have,
very well.
Been raised in a period where DC does not care like about Tim Drake at all. That are like 12 years old at this point.
I know, isn't that nuts?
It's crazy.
I just love how responsible Tim is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. And I want to see more of like what was going on with him and his girlfriend. I was like, I didn't know about any of this. I want to see this stuff.
Yeah, she was
I want to
interesting.
go read that Dixon run.
Yeah, she seemed cool, and I forgot. So I had those issues when I was a kid, the Robin ones, and the thing I remember most about that was just the thug with the creepy mask that's on the covers, and the fact that he had a girlfriend, but I didn't remember her being Russian.
Yeah, that was really unique.
So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the art in the Tallyman sections either, but I like the design of Tallyman himself just because it's impossible and crazy. I kind of like that. Austin, talk a little bit about Tallyman, would you?
Okay, so first of all, worst part about Tallyman is we set up this midget mob boss, then immediately kill him off when he should have been the overall villain of all of KnightQuest, clearly. But Tallyman is, like I said earlier, anorexic clown. He hates liars, I think, something like that.
Yeah, he's angry with Batman because he lied to him about something. I can't remember what it was. And he thinks that Asbats is the real Batman, of course, and so he's going after him, and it's not actually the person that he's after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's got this big black book of liars. He's gonna go around and kill all of them, and his mom, I think, was being abused, and he stepped in when he was a kid and killed that person, and he was sent to prison, even though that would be self-defense.
Thank you for bringing that up. I could
and
not.
He's like 8.
I couldn't deal with that. So he's got this really trite, typical, unbelievable, abusive backstory, and I'm like. It already read really trite. Just the way the dad was abusing them, and the dialogue was super typical. And you gotta play with that kind of thing with kid gloves. Well, and I shouldn't say kid gloves. I just mean it's hard to make that stuff read believable. And I think sometimes writers in comics and in prose and everywhere will kind of expect that you'll be sympathetic just because of the situation. And what a writer always has to remember is that none of this is real, and we all know it. So you don't get a pass just because a kid was abused. It's not a real kid. You have to make me believe it. I have to actually buy into it. I've said this before, but I had a mentor in college, and I love this guy, and I quote him all the time. But the one thing he said that I never bought into, and I fought him on all the time, was that children are inherently sympathetic in fiction. No, they're not. It's just not true.
Kids are inherently unsympathetic, just in real life, and you have to work to make them sympathetic.
And you guys have heard me say these things. This is the same guy who said you can make anything work, you just have to make it work, and nobody gives a crap about reading your story. But how does the same guy that says nobody gives a crap about your story say children are inherently sympathetic? No, they're not. So anyway, I'm buying the situation as a thing that could happen, I guess, anyway, up until the point where the kid knifes the father. Is it his father? I can't remember. Who's beating his mother?
Yeah.
And then
this is like 500 pages ago.
This is really sticking with us, isn't it? And it's clearly self-defense or in defense of his mother, but it's the same thing, right? And then it's not just that he gets sent to prison for it, and that's crazy. He's 12.
Well,
you would not be tried as an adult in that situation at 12.
If you want to see Tallyman's origin done well, it's Netflix Kingpin. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's that scene. Yeah.
Well, and the reason the Kingpin thing works is because he's like that character is. We understand how he got to where he got, where he's like, you know, textbook sympathetic. Like, he is awful, but you see what the insecurities are, you know what his interests are, you see his like, you know, the lauded goal of you know, running for office and all of that. This is just some guy who beats his kid. I don't know why. He just does.
Now he hates liars. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the connection is. I couldn't figure that out, like, what that had to do with his actual backstory.
I don't know what they were trying to do, whether they were trying to do, like, you know, Jean Paul Valley's inner conflict where he thinks he's one thing and they're trying to parallel that, but...
Well, that is definitely what they're doing, and I think he even talks about that some. There's a lot of kind of coming right off the page and explaining the thematic parallels to me in general through a lot of these issues, where I'm like, okay, well, there's not a whole lot of space for me to do any analysis here.
Visually, he looks like he can be Valley's Scarecrow.
Oh, maybe that's the idea, because there is some talk about fear and stuff.
Well, when he first showed up, I wondered if it was Scarecrow with that body size. Cause we do Scarecrow like that a lot,
especially in this period.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Nightfall Scarecrow has that on covers, at the very least.
Well, Nightfall Scarecrow's awesome. He's like the god of fear. That's one of my favorite parts of Nightfall.
Yeah.
Well, Cap was talking about this when we were first beginning, that it feels like a TV show. A lot of these issues remind me of like binge watching the animated series, where it's like you'll have like a couple episodes of Gold and then you'll have one just weird episode where it's like, okay, that has nothing to do with Batman. Like, why would you write that? And it feels like that.
It's like the Nostradamus episode.
Yeah.
But you get a bunch of them. I forgot about this Mekros guy, codenamed Mekros.
Yeah.
That is the most 90s thing.
Well, see, I think we have to stop at a top 5, Kareem. I don't think we can nail down exactly what the most 90s thing is, because they're going to different places, right? You can't say Mekros over the guy with the Cyclops visor who's got the American flag head.
I'm
like,
pretty
no.
sure there's
I don't know which one is more 90s than the other. That is equal 90s cheese nonsense. Mekros is one of my favorite things in this book, ironically.
I'm pretty sure there's a top 10 most 90s things in KnightQuest Watch Mojo video that is on YouTube, and it's probably like 5 years old at this point.
Oh, well, I need to make my own version of that because it'll be better. But
you're not wrong.
Sorry, that was mean. Did you guys have what I did where we're watching Mekros get suited up, and I'm like, oh, is this Jean Paul Valley? I thought he was already in his suit. Did you guys have that? And then when he suited up, I'm like, why did I spend 4 pages watching this generic RoboCop guy get dressed? And then he gets dressed, and then he turns into one of my favorite things because he has the same like 5 phrases, like you press a button on a toy and it just cycles through them. and it's like he has these wise sayings that he says, and it's like these macho things where he's like, you know, if you don't have fear, then you can accomplish anything or whatever. And I messaged Austin and I was like, this guy got all of his quotes out of the Reader's Digest. Only the Phoenix survives chaos. And then he's in 2 issues, says the same 5 things over and over again. And eventually I started just skipping his dialogue because I knew what it all was.
I did that too, because it's like, it's just the same thing. I don't care. I don't care if he's saying Jesus is a friend of mine for the 8th time. I know what he says.
And then it got really jarring when suddenly he just started talking like a person.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't figure out what he was. I was like, is he Well, I guess the idea, and again, that's the parallel with Jean Paul Valley, right? Is that he has his own programming, but the difference is he did it to himself?
Yeah, his phrases are the codes that like put him into the next programming thing.
Oh, is that the idea?
Yeah, which I thought was a little on the nose when Jean Paul Valley was like, he's on a program like me. But
like me?
he knows what his programming is, unlike me.
Yeah, that's where we're just giving the thematic analysis on the page, and I'm like, dude, I could have figured that out. Like, give me a little bit of credit while I'm reading your book.
We're very upfront about that stuff for some reason.
It's comics. I'm sure some of that is we're trying not to leave out the 10-year-olds.
It's the 90s. You got to be thematic to the extreme.
Roboter says this guy looks ready for Cobra.
I mean, yeah, he could be. He's Destro.
Now that we're looking at him here, tell me, you guys, how you feel about Gordon's arc through this. Like his, kind of questioning from the beginning whether or not Asbats is the real Batman, but not coming around on for sure it's not him until all the way at the end.
Yeah, I didn't buy that. I don't know if they were trying to stretch out that drama and make it seem like, he thought he was or something like that, but I don't buy that Gordon doesn't immediately not know that that's not the real Batman.
Did you have that, Austin?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess I might be the dissenting opinion on this. That's maybe some of my favorite stuff. I can see where you're coming from, that it maybe goes on too long, but I like it in terms of it feels like Gordon is going, I don't want to admit that my friend is dead.
Yeah.
And like isn't gonna come back, so like I'm gonna hold to the fact that Santa's still real. Like I'm a kid and I don't want to give that up yet. I want this to be the real person, and it's this constant struggle where I think he knows through the whole book that it's not actually Batman, but he doesn't want to believe it. And I really like that. And the shot of him breaking the bat signal with his gun is a really provocative image.
Yep.
It's great.
And I love that one of the iconic images of Nightfall that's on, all the old trades is the bat signal it cracked, where it's like we've like, it's not that Batman is dead, it's that his image has been perverted. We've ruined the symbol of Batman. And I love that it's Gordon who does that.
The final scene between them is really good.
It's really good. I am somewhere between you guys on this whole thing. So what I meant earlier, Austin, is I'm questioning it real hard at the beginning and the middle, because I don't think it's coming off the page enough that he's in denial. Like, and part of the problem is, from the beginning, he's one of the only people that's even questioning whether this guy in this completely new robot-looking suit is Why would you assume that that's Batman? You have all these people that just buy it straight away, and I'm like, why? You have other vigilantes on the streets.
Just comics, they all do it.
Why would you?
I don't know.
Yeah, but I would like I could write it off as just comics if it weren't for the fact that then, as we go along, various characters that we know already are assigned to either know that he's Batman or not know that he's Batman, and it makes everybody on the street look a lot stupider.
Yeah,
well, it seems just be. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that Austin said about denial is that really works. That I didn't even think of that, but like, I don't buy that. Like, does he even call him Jim, like the way Batman does? And
yeah, good point.
I don't know. To me, Jim Gordon has been with Bruce Wayne since he was a kid. I mean, he obviously doesn't know that that's Batman, but it's like such a almost symbiotic relationship with those two that it just seems weird to me that the ace detective doesn't know that this is not the real Batman.
Well, and that's why it's interesting. Like it works better. I don't know. It works better as an idea than the execution of it, because I'm with you, Kareem. But then the idea that he really relies on Batman and needs him that much, and doesn't want him, like Austin is saying, to not be the Batman he always knew is a good idea. I just don't know that it totally plays. And I added to that the notion that, and I like this just for the sake of irony, I guess, but again, more on the page than on the comic page, I guess. The idea that Gordon is now suddenly the only public servant that is against Batman, and Batman is going too far in brutalizing criminals, and the mayor is okay with that because his approval rating is better.
Yeah.
That whole thing is interesting. I don't know if I buy it, but I like the idea of it.
Yeah,
Like,
I wish we did more with
theoretically, I
that.
like all this.
I wish we did more with the mayor thing, because it's kind of just the same scene over and over again, and then it doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you messaged me when you got to the first scene, you're like, "Wow, this mayor thing's great," and I'm like, "Well, I'm like 200 pages ahead of you, so prepare for that to go nowhere."
Well, didn't they do the same thing with Montoya and Bullock, where they believe that, like, well, this is what Gotham does to people, and like this is what Batman's become.
Well,
Like,
Montoya figures it out like almost immediately, which I thought was a little weird, because I was like, I don't know if she is close enough to Batman, because it seems to just be the people who are really close to Batman are the people that figure it out.
And the
faster.
Penguin.
Yeah, he's one of the main villains. It's fine.
I wasn't completely sure about that one either.
I was a little shaky on that one.
I wondered about it, and then I just kind of went, it's probably just supposed to be he's one of the big ones, so that's the reason why we're going there. But yeah,
Well, the Joker, Selina, and Gordon makes total sense.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean-
Selina's the one that... Well, Selina and the Joker both are the ones that I buy the way they're handled the most.
Selina was weird though with the pheromones and stuff. I forget what she said, but
Yeah.
she was like,
That was straight. You didn't need that, but we'll get to that
"Poison Ivy."
because everything about those issues makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, because he's
Deeply.
a grade A prevert.
Yes, yes, he is, and
I don't know why he wants to hold her. He has knife fingers.
Yeah, they were trying to do something where, you know, he was succumbing to her seductive ways, and it just read so weird and awkward.
yeah.
He reads like a preteen boy.
Yeah.
And I get, by the way, I just kind of rushed through the twins, but there's a lot of action on a train, and we finally wrapped that up in issue, and then we set up. I actually liked this idea, because sometimes we'll move away from something for too long and then I've forgotten about it. I didn't mind doing that with the Joker. I kind of liked setting him up here, and then it's a while before we see him again. Partly just because that story is so good, making me wait for it like really works.
Plus, it makes sense with what his story is. That like, there's a lot of stuff that has to go into it. It's nice that it's not just like, here's the Joker, here's this big plan that he has out of nowhere. It is kind of cool that you see it kind of building as time goes on, and you know that in the meantime he's setting everything up.
Yeah, because it's such an elaborate plot, and he's got to like get in cahoots with like Hollywood people, and so they're
He's gotta get
actually
schedules to align.
yeah, they're building a legitimate movie, even though everything he's doing is horrible and illegal. But the the Hollywood producers don't care, and I love the satire with all that. It's wonderful. We'll get there here in just a little bit. While we're on this panel, though, I have a theory about why now with the Joker, because I had this thought for a second where I was like, I mean, yeah, it's going to take him a while to put this together, but how long has it been since we saw him last? Like, it's been a while.
Since
And-
the beginning of Nightfall, right?
It's the last
Middle
thing
of
that
it.
happens before the back break.
Oh,
Well,
is it?
that-
Is it
It's
that
that
late?
big Joker and Scarecrow storyline, because it's like Batman beats them, and then he goes off and he goes home and he gets taken out.
But I have a theory as to why it takes even this long, and I'm only half joking when I say this. The Joker wants to look the part so much that he can't do this until he's grown his hair out that long. That's why he does it right now.
See, I was thinking, wow, his hair must grow really fast.
No, I think it's been a while. I think he's had time for his hair to grow that long.
It's been a year. hasn't
Yeah,
it?
Has it been
at
a
least
full
6
year?
months.
Okay, it's hard to tell sometimes with comics.
No, that-
how...
No, that's fair, and I don't know that they're giving us a good sense enough of timestamps to be fair. I don't think it's like last Thursday, though. I think it's been a while.
Well, and we also read Nightfall a year ago. So some of that's a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
And for us, it feels like it's been a year because it's been a year.
Exactly.
Guys, we're at 15 past the hour. We're doing pretty well. I mean, we took 2.5 hours on Nightfall. This is even longer. I'm not expecting to take quite that long with this because we're moseying through this pretty quickly. But I do want to take just a real quick break if everybody's cool with that for like maybe 3-4 minutes, and we'll come right back and we'll finish talking about KnightQuest, the Crusade. See you in just a little bit. Oh, hello, Austin.
Hello. I stood up and my legs were weak. My legs were asleep. I was like, oh, I'm gonna fall over.
I mean, we haven't been here that long.
No, I'm just getting old.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just, kind of rush through these and talk about like as we have been doing just these real briefly. We've got a one issue story here that I feel like could have been a couple. It's weird because some of these are like 3-4 issues, and I feel like they could just be 2. And this is one that I wanted to see fleshed out a lot more because it's real atmospheric, and I kind of like the Mr. Freeze choice. This one is called Cold Cases, and which is kind of a fun double entendre title. And Austin, talk about this a little bit because I know you were kind of disappointed with the ending.
Yeah, so this is an awesome issue up until the end. It's got some really cool atmosphere, and and just kind of intrigue. And obviously, it's Mr. Freeze, like right from the start. But I thought all of this was really cool. All the setup was really great. And then Batman shows up, and then he just kind of kicks Mr. Freeze's ass, and it's over.
Yeah.
It's really disappointing because it turns into a horror movie where the lights are taken out, and they're like sneaking around the facility trying to find him, and they're not revealing who it is yet. They're like, oh, this guy. It's that story thing, right, where you want it to be a twist, so they're all speaking in code, where it's like, oh, this guy. If it's who I think it is, it's this guy. it's gonna be crazy.
I thought that was weird though, because I mean, from my perspective, it's like this is obviously gonna be Mr. Freeze. I don't know why we're treating it like a big mystery.
Weird, but I thought like the atmosphere was really cool, where they were like going through the building trying to find him, and all of that, and then Batman just kind of shows up, and then he uses his claws to cut Mr. Freeze.
I guess I just didn't get why Montoya wouldn't go. I bet this is gonna end up being Mr. Freeze.
It's the Force Awakens thing where they're like, our son did
exactly.
this. Our son.
No, I don't think so though, because I think she's surprised. I don't think she knows who it is, or does she?
No, well, they don't know if it's like they assume it's just like a dead body, like it's just some victim.
But the idea that Mr. Freeze himself is in cryostasis, that's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And to their defense, like when they find that body, it could be a victim of Mr. Freeze. They wouldn't know offhand that it's Mr. Freeze right away.
But at the point where he's alive and running around naked, they've got to be thinking, I wonder if it's Mr. Freeze.
When she knows then, because that's when she starts doing the, oh man, it's him.
Oh,
it's this guy. It's our son.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I didn't think it was that situation at all, but I forgot about that part of it. Yeah, you're right. It's fun to see Jean-Paul Valley finally go up against a major Batman villain, and not the one, because I don't think it's happened at all yet, and it's not the one that you expect, because, and I don't know if this was on purpose, but if you're reading these sequentially, you just saw the Joker, and now we're going to have not one of his kind of random not great rogues gallery characters, but another Batman villain, but it's not the Joker yet.
And it's cool because it's flipped where Batman's in a mech suit and Mr. Freeze
that's great.
is just walking around naked, I guess.
That's a good point. And then, like Batman usually is running around naked, like it's flipped.
Exactly, yeah. Well, Batman is just Batman, so like him in his suit is him naked.
But it's also cool because this is one of the only major Batman villains we didn't see in the first volume of Nightfall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, him and Catwoman. I don't think Catwoman shows up at all in Nightfall.
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And we're going to get her right after this.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think we get any Clayface either.
No, not in that first one.
I don't think so, yeah.
So that's all calculated. Like, they're intentionally going to villains that we haven't, besides the Joker, that we haven't dealt with recently.
Well, and Joker's, like, the main one. Like, you want to see what the new Batman is like going up against Joker.
Yeah, of course.
Well, it's also, like Austin said, it's like a kind of a missed opportunity with this issue, where you have Mr. Freeze, who is inherently, maybe not sympathetic, but empathetic. Like, you can understand why he's doing what he's doing. And it would have been more interesting to see Valley like go up against somebody like that, because his whole thing is just vengeance on everything. So I kind of that.
Yeah, and he's cold in the same way, at least when the programming is taking hold.
Well, and I didn't think about this, but what's the timeline on Mr. Freeze, like between this and the animated series?
Well, that's what I was going to say is I don't think he has that motivation yet in comics.
Oh, okay.
I didn't think about it until you just said it. I went, because I was with you, and then I went, wait a minute. This is like early 90s. Like, there's a chance that this is hasn't happened yet.
I don't think that's happened in comics
Never
yet.
mind, then. That would have been really interesting, though.
No, it would, sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
No, I think it's more of a one-dimensional comparison that we're making between them there. I will say
the
that
animated series, he's got like motivation. He has clothes. It's way better than this one.
Why his name is not Dr. Freeze? I will never understand.
yeah.
Like, villain name?
Mhm.
Yeah, it is better.
I think the answer to that is he wasn't actually a doctor when he was first invented, right?
Yeah, probably.
Because isn't Mr. Freeze made up for the 60s
Is he just
show?
like a thug?
Or
No,
am
I don't
wrong,
think
Or am
so.
I wrong about that?
I don't think so, but I think he's just like a thug early on.
Yeah, I don't know what his first appearance is. I don't usually do this in the middle of a show, but I'm going to find out.
Because he was
Oh,
played by...
59. 59. So it's just a few years before 66 started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't think he was made for that show. Because if he was, we'd never see him again.
Yeah, well, yeah, you say that, but I mean, that show also invented Barbara Gordon, so...
That is true, but none of the villains have come back.
Not
Or, to be
much.
main villains.
To be main
Yeah.
villains,
Not like
yeah.
Mr. Freeze.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, and I complain about that all the time because I always thought that Bookworm could be a major villain and King Tut could be a major villain, and we finally did it with King Tut in a Batman Confidential, but nobody remembers that. Anyway, so hey Kareem, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Catwoman story?
I missed this costume with
I
Selena.
thought you were gonna say I didn't read this part.
That's what I thought you were going to. I missed this one.
I actually...
Moving on.
Oh, so she's trying to do some environmental thing with some people for some reason.
Yeah, it reads really... Thanks for doing the homework, Kareem. It reads really heavy-handed at first, and then we kind of get both sides of it towards the end, and I appreciate that, but it's too little too late, because at the start of it, it's like the government is ruining the rainforest, and they're gonna like put this toxin in the air, this like bioweapon, and kill all the animals, and also indigenous people there, they don't care, and then they're just gonna put up like shopping malls and crap, and we get hit with that right away where I'm like, this all feels like kind of out of nowhere and real preachy and kind of obvious, and then later we find out that the the kind of hippie guys who are like their dialogue is hilarious and completely unbelievable, but they are kind of terrorists, and Catwoman ultimately isn't on their side entirely either, and so I like getting both sides of the politics of it, I guess, but it was so late before that happened.
She comes off very Poison Ivy in these issues for some reason. Like, why is Selena doing this? Like it just, she's a kleptomaniac. Like, what does she care about the environment?
Well, I think it's because there's big cats in the rainforest, but she doesn't ever actually say that, so I don't know.
I didn't actually have that thought, but you're right, Kareem. This is very much a Poison Ivy story.
It's kind of a Poison Ivy story, but she's not trying to hurt any people. She's trying to stop... She's actually doing what Batman would do. She's trying to stop the bioweapon.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
no, that is
part
true.
of the reason I say Poison Ivy, too, because the pheromones thing with Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing's really weird.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it kind of reads like... I don't know. Does that read half sexist to you? Where it's like, she's a woman. She can read pheromones? I don't understand that.
Well, if there's anything I know about women, it's A, they can smell pheromones, and B, their vision is based on movement. So that might make sense to me.
Speaking of that, this is right around when Jurassic Park is huge, and how many Jurassic Park references are there through these trades? Like 9? Like, there's a lot of Jurassic Park in this.
Penguin straight up says, "Hey Gordon, have you seen Jurassic Park?"
Yeah, and then he explains the and then he explains the theme of Jurassic Park to Gordon. He explains the social commentary.
It's a big movie, guys.
No, it's dated in some places like that. And I don't think that's satire. That's just comics being comics at that point.
Peter David just got home from the cinema and he was like, "This is making it into my script."
Why does the guy who accidentally invents the bioweapon look just like Clark Kent?
I had that too when you first showed up. I was like, "Oh, Superman shows up in this? I didn't know that."
When his glasses fall off,
Oh,
everybody should be like, "Oh my god, it's Superman!" Psych!
What are you doing in Gotham?
One of my favorite panels in the whole thing is on this page, where there's an artist rendition of what Asbat looks like, and it's even more insanely image anti-hero. It's like what Rob Liefeld really would have drawn, and it's
And he's got the War Machine gun.
And he's got a skeleton face.
And he's got tubes coming out of his head.
Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah, the gun that's right behind him, and he's got like part of a cowl. He's got a skeleton face and then a cowl that just sits on the top of his skeleton face.
It's his crown.
It's amazing.
When you guys mentioned the Bane gauntlets, it kind of made me wish that Jean-Paul Valley would take Venom. Like that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah, it would have been interesting.
Okay, you say that, but then what we would have to read is him whining for issues at a time about how he murdered 35 people and it wasn't his fault. Like that's what that would have been, right? Like we're trying so hard not to let him go too far in killing people. You put him on Venom, and then he's not going to be able to fight that at all.
Pretty much. Just roid rage everywhere.
And I don't mind that, except then I have to listen to him complain about it. Because that's what he does. Okay, did you guys feel like it got really repetitive just listening to him with his internal conflict? Because he never moves any inches on that until the very, very end, really. Like, there's a couple of, like, notable places where he's starting to kind of make decisions about who he's going to be, but most of it is just constantly going, am I just my programming? Can I go against my programming? Do I want to follow my father? Do I want to follow Saint Dumas? And then the whole... I thought this was really strange. The whole Crusade thing, he can't even decide if he's a crazy person, but he's following it anyway.
Well, the weirdest thing with that is that because he's got like you say, he's got like the two Mufasas that are on his shoulder that are fighting.
Yeah.
And there's a part where they literally fight where one of them kills the other one, and then they fall over dead and they're like, "Avenge me!" And I was like, okay, I guess we finally settled. This is what's gonna happen. And then like 2 issues later, they're both fighting again.
Yeah.
I thought that was really weird.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's some character regression. We're kind of stuck in a cycle with that.
It's kind of like the mayor thing where it's like we just kind of keep hitting the same beat over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like the cooks in the kitchen too, that what Cap was saying about like it feels like 64 episodes of television where everyone kind of has their own idea of what's happening and they just keep repeating the same. It almost reads like overly neurotic, where it's like you got a crazy person and then they keep hitting the same beat over and over again.
Well, and it's got to be really difficult to coordinate when you have all this coming out at once. So there's probably places where they're not even sure what the last guy is writing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure this was a nightmare to put together, especially because of how rushed it had to be.
It was a nightfall.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are places where you'll have. I'm thinking particularly toward the end with the what's that guy's name that we keep making fun of. Oh, abattoir. You have you remember he's killing his family members to get. We're jumping way ahead, but he's killing his. We're not gonna have anything to say about this when we get there. He's killing his family members to get their life force or whatever. And I don't know if that's actually true or if he's just a nut job and that's in his head. I don't really understand that. But he's got his. I don't even know how the guy's related to him, but he's got his family member like on a torture device with nails, and he's putting stuff on him. When he's explaining the torture device and how much he's going to suffer and how happy Abattoir is going to be about that, you get to the very next issue and you read 2 pages that's the exact same exchange but with different dialogue. That happens in a couple of places.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I can't tell how much of it is recapping and how much of it is just coordination. But I think it's the same writer writing both of those, so I don't know.
Well, and I mentioned this to Cap off camera, and not the best segue, but I just thought of it.
We talk too much. We got to quit doing that.
Yeah, exactly. With like how much of this is kind of sloppy in that way. Do you guys think that we should have had like a big villain that's kind of present throughout the whole thing that is like what Nightfall had with Bane? Because this one, in a lot of ways, is kind of aimless without that.
I completely agree. I was expecting that to happen.
Well, when you said that, it made me wonder if it was actually a misstep to have him beat Bane as quickly as he did at the end of Nightfall, or if that should have been the villain. But I kind of worry that we didn't have enough left to say with that character.
Mm-hmm. I could see it either way with that. Because that's the big thing that Denny O'Neil's Iron Man has. Is that's where we bring in Stain, and Stain's the villain through all of that, and like it has that kind of presence that this doesn't. And it was something that I wondered, and I don't know if it should have been Bane or if we should have introduced somebody else to be the main villain here.
It's just, for me, thematically, the most interesting character stuff is those 3 as a triad. So I kind of hate taking Bane out for the sake of the ideas of the book, because I'm still finding a lot of interesting character parallels between the 3 of them. Plus UDX says Bane returns. It might have been a good idea to take him out for a while and then have a big reveal where he's broken out of Blackgate already. You could have done that.
Well,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying it's funny that Austin keeps mentioning Iron Man, because I feel like Nightfall is sort of primed to like be adapted very like much better than the source material, the way like Civil War was, where it's like, wow, Civil War, like the movie was so much better than, in my opinion, and than the comic book, where it's like Nightfall has so many good ideas, like gems of ideas, that you could really execute that so well.
And Rises did not do that, and was also trying to adapt too many things at once. And Robert Wilde said, how have we not done the 2-part animated movie for this yet?
Yeah, no, this deserves the Long Halloween treatment, where we come in and we tighten it up a little bit.
I still have to watch.
It's pretty good.
It's good.
I enjoyed it, yeah.
It's not perfect. It's pretty good.
Yeah. But that is a weird thing. Like, if you were to look at this in terms of like a trilogy and the way that it kind of is, where it's, you know, you have your first part that's Batman versus Bane, and then you take over and Azrael kind of comes in and he takes out Bane by the end of that. And then here it's just Azrael and there's no real threat overall. And then the next one would be, of course, Batman versus Asbats. And it almost feels like this should be the Azrael Batman versus Bane story, but we got rid of that in Nightfall. But at the same time, like Cap said, I don't know if that's what we should have done. You know what I mean? Like, it feels natural in Nightfall, and then it just kind of is deflated here.
I know,
so
I know we keep saying this, but I think the problem is that it's at odds with itself, where we have to keep asking, is this a story or is this a status quo? So in giving Asbats his own rogues gallery, we're trying to make the audience think, or the reader for a while think, this is Batman now. And so we're supposed to enjoy watching him in similar kind of just regular nightly situations with Batman. So like Jean-Paul Valley is not interested in detective work, but he's stuck in a book called Detective Comics. And so he's having to deal with regular detective sort of scenarios, and he just wants to slash at them with his big knife fingers. And then eventually he goes, and this was actually, by the way, a nice part of his character arc, I think, where there's some real progression, where he goes, oh, I mean, it's silly, but where he goes, oh, I see why Batman, or why Bruce feels the need to, like, actually collect clues and figure out stuff. Maybe I should be more like Bruce Wayne. And that's where more of the conflict finally gets interesting between the programming versus like free will, where he's like, well, maybe I should act more like Batman and less like Azrael. And I'm like, you think?
Maybe I shouldn't just cut people.
This is how crime works.
I just had a thought though about this in terms of the villain situation. Maybe they should have done like we have a new Batman, and then you have somebody that kind of sees Bane and goes, Bane got taken out. Like I can be the next Bane in the same way that you have, the next Batman. Like maybe would have been the way to go.
That's a good call.
Well, the way they executed it. Sorry, the way they executed it like makes me agree with Austin even more from the first part, where he's like, Bane is just this sort of token character, and he just gets taken out like nothing. So I kind of wish, I agree with you, I wish his presence was felt way more.
I mean, he feels too much like a plot device.
Yeah.
More so than he would if he stuck around. See, I don't know if I would have liked this, but I wonder if maybe the smart move would have been for Azrael Batman to have an arch nemesis that's related to the Order of Saint Dumas. Like, that's who takes over for Bane. Wow. And maybe it should have been... I'm saying this retroactively, maybe O'Neill shouldn't have killed the demon Biss, and he should have come back here, because he's wearing, or the guy that worships Biss. I don't know if you guys remember that, but he puts on the bat suit and like perverts Batman, and you've got Azrael Batman arguably also doing that, but like trying to live up to the mantle. It's all right there, right? Like, if we'd waited and done some of sort of Azrael here, I think sort of Azrael's done prematurely when the rest of this happens.
When I haven't read Sword of Azrael, so I'm not sure about that aspect, but I mean, that sounds better.
I've read it a couple years ago.
See, reading Nightfall, I felt like Sword of Azrael was really, really necessary, and people would just be lost about the cult stuff. And then you get into this, and it's all recapped in like 2 pages pretty early, and I went, where the hell was this during Nightfall?
Yeah, and I never found that hard to follow, but I can see what you mean.
Well, I have I don't know if you guys had.
Sorry, I'm just holding on this page because I hate this cover with like a burning passion. And I just wanted to throw that out. As a kid, I hated this cover. I was like, what is with Catwoman's face? Like, what is she doing? Why does she look middle-aged? Like, it's just a really strange picture. I don't understand her face.
I don't know. I really like Kelly Jones.
I like Kelly Jones sometimes. And I was going to mention, he draws like 90% of these covers. Like, no matter what the book is, he's drawing all the covers.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't like his Catwoman face here. There, I
just forget Kelly Jones is a guy.
And also, Night Becomes Woman is a stupid title.
Yes.
But everything about the gender roles in the like gratuitous, kind of sex stuff is so strange, and we have to at least briefly touch on it. But I'm sorry, Kareem, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna touch on it a little bit.
Please do touch on it, Kareem.
Yeah. He comes off, I mean, he is a man-child, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think they're trying to just illustrate that, but it just comes off really awkward. Like, and I'm sure they meant it to come off awkward, but it's just really uncomfortable to read. He's just delving into, I don't know, Catwoman and who she is, and basically him not trying to get tempted by her, but he's just going really into it. I guess it's just like a parallel for Bruce and Selina, where they have this kind of cat and mouse kind of thing. But him, he can't handle it. So I don't know. It just comes off so awkward.
No, he talks about Catwoman the way Frank Miller characters talk about the city.
It's just, this is a really tough thing to write and nail, right? Because he doesn't work as a protagonist, and he kind of has to be the protagonist, so what do? But the problem is, there's no relating to this character, really, because he's, again, a blank slate, and he's running on instinct, and he never was really allowed to grow up, and he's just running on this like, you know, program that's in his head, and he's trying to fight against that, so, like, that's endearing, I guess, but ultimately, you're just watching a guy that never went through puberty at, like, basically at like 35 or whatever age he is. He's probably like 22, and he is like super sexually frustrated. He clearly has never been with a woman, doesn't know how to handle his feelings for a woman or a relationship with a woman. The Catwoman side of it is written better, but like I think the problem is it's supposed to be awkward, but it's also trying not to take itself too seriously. And I think in this particular case, it actually can't have as much fun with it as it is without it feeling icky. Is kind of the feeling I had with it, because you've got all this not at all thinly veiled sexual innuendo, and like he's throwing out words like penetration, and I'm just like, stop, you know?
Mm. When it gets weird, when it's like, I wonder if Bruce has ever touched her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like he's gonna start talking about how he can smell her shampoo. Like it gets to like that like weird level, you know? It's one thing to just that it's like the sexual thing, but then I don't know, it gets real weird. It gets very like young boy.
It's just really weird because Bruce and Selina have such an intimate relationship. To see somebody like kind of wear Batman's clothes and think these thoughts about basically, you know, the woman he's most with is just, it's weird.
Yeah. One, it's weird in that we want to do the Batman Catwoman thing, but we also want him to be like the darker, crazy Batman. So he's like, I'm going to take out Catwoman for good. It maybe would have been more interesting if we dropped the sexual angle entirely, and Catwoman still has that element to Batman, but he has none of it. So she's trying to play on it, and he's like, no, like, I'm going to cut you with my knives.
Yeah. And that's how she knows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, the thing that I feel like some of these guys forget from sort of Asriel is that Jean-Paul Valley wasn't this like antisocial and like totally socially confused before the programming kicked in. And I don't understand why once that happens, because he's not always being fueled by the programming, right? So I don't understand why when that happens, he completely loses his old personality.
Because he's just like a normal guy, even in Nightfall, when he's hanging out with Batman and Robin.
Yeah, and he's lost that, and I'm not sure if there's something I've forgotten, something I've missed, but like he's trying to figure out if his father coming to him is is like somehow real, or if it's just his going nuts or whatever. But I don't understand how that would like change him to the point where he's just, you know, running on instinct and nothing else, and where he doesn't seem to like, he even has a line about how like he never cared about movies. And I think when we first meet him, he's got like music posters in his room, and like I think he's kind of just a regular guy who's into pop culture and stuff.
He's a music guy, not a movie guy.
Maybe
He's not seen Jurassic Park.
Yeah, well, he hasn't had time since he's been Batman.
This is where those amnesia plots just really bite us in the butt.
Yeah, because it's so risky because the whole point is that you've got a character who doesn't know what he wants, and that's what stories are about. And it's hard. I've always said this. It's hard to straddle that line between a character who is like trying to find themselves and is becoming a person through that, and using it as an excuse to not have characters be real people and to just have, you know, kind of a one-dimensional character. And this feels like both at various points. I don't know, it's just really tough. And one of the things with this story, in particular, with the Catwoman section, that makes it hard for me to take it seriously, and makes that stuff feel more cringe-inducing, is because he's really not acting like a real person and seems kind of out of character, even for what I understand about him. Because compare, and that's why I'm on this page right now, compare the way he seems to immediately understand the Joker's MO and the way he does things versus not getting Catwoman remotely at all. And, like, I don't get that. There's a difference between, I don't understand, like, women and, like, how, you know, she operates just being the opposite sex and his being introduced in her, or, like, interested in her, and that throwing him off, versus just reading up on her history, and he would immediately know she's not a terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
That
whole thing didn't work at all.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, didn't they have a line where, I really thought it was kind of cool that they said Bruce keeps extensive, like, most of his notes are on the Joker. Like, I feel like they had a line where...
Yeah, there's a line about how there are more notes on the Joker than anybody, but he clearly has a file on Catwoman.
Yeah, no, I agree with
and
that.
we see him reading it. That's what's weird about that. And I can get him being skeptical initially, where it's like, well, I've never dealt with her. Maybe she's capable of this. But she's constantly explaining the whole situation to you. That she knows what the main part of the bioweapon is, and if you keep it away from this other thing, it's dormant, and she's just trying to keep it out of the wrong hands. And, like, what is his angle? Why does he assume she's lying about all of that? Like, nothing she's done suggests she's doing anything but stealing it so that it's not used for the wrong reasons. It's weird.
Yeah, I think it's just supposed to be that he's not very smart and not a detective, but it's not the best.
Well,
yeah.
It makes me hate him in this section, and that sucks. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Cap. They could have done a really interesting thing where the two angels and devils on his shoulder, did like a night celibacy thing to sort of go over that awkwardness and explain that in a cool kind of way.
Yeah.
I thought that they were leaning towards.
Yeah, but... and you could have his dad being like, yeah, you should be a regular person and maybe be able to date women, and
that's why I'm a dad.
He gives them the talk.
I meant to say this earlier. I do like, again, this is all kind of on paper stuff, but I do really like the idea that there's kind of a, like, the mirroring crusade between Bruce Wayne and Jean-Paul Valley. They both come from their fathers.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
You know, it's a vow that they both make to their dads. And and that's like against vengeance, but there's this other side of them that is fighting the more altruistic side of that vow. I like that about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different parallels. Like, Bruce is trying to honor his family, and Jean-Paul is like haunted by his family. I forgot that his dad was like that spirit thing, because like Arkham City messed me up, because Azrael, or is it Arkham City or Arkham Knight, or one of those, where it's like
Arkham City does the Azrael stuff. I'm not sure if he's in Knight.
He is. They go farther. He's just kind of like a man on rooftops in Arkham City.
Yeah.
And he's a big part of Arkham Knight in that, like in his own little side story, but it's also not John Paul Valley in that. I can't remember who it is.
He has like a weird costume. Like it's all right. Anyway, it messed me up.
Yeah, and he's like a retired cop in that.
Oh, okay.
I
don't think I played that side stuff.
Yeah, because that Azrael thing gives you the choice where you can either walk away and give up the programming thing, or you can try to pick up the sword and kill Batman with it.
Robo Brando says Arkham Azrael is Michael Lane.
Michael Lane. There we go.
That makes more sense.
I'm not finding it right away, but I do want to talk about it. My favorite panel with this, because it's so stupid. You know what I'm gonna say, right, Austin?
When he throws out the statue and that one.
The statue.
Oh, okay, so I'm thinking of a completely different thing apparently.
No, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'll just mention this. So I think it's earlier than this. We'll just keep moving on. But there's this great bit where he says, just this whole scene is funny. Where he says, I'm gonna tie you up now, Catwoman, and she says, "You wish," and then she headbutts a metal mask. She does this, like she headbutts him, and she's fine, and he's like momentarily dazed, and I'm like, he's wearing a metal helmet. That's crazy.
It should have been, "I'm gonna tie you up, you wish," and then Batman's narration is like, "I do." Because that's what his character is like.
Well, and keep in mind, I believe this happens after the night that he dreams about her, and in his dreams does all manner of whatever. Remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
And all I could think about, this is awful. All I could think about, because as we're learning about the dream, he doesn't go into detail. It's almost worse because he doesn't. But we're seeing him in the Batcave around the cardboard cutouts of all the villains.
Oh,
and one of them is Catwoman, and all I could think was, I don't even want to know what he's doing with that cardboard cutout.
See, I'm a good boy. I thought his dream was that he and Catwoman went to the pep rally and held hands. That was what I got out of it.
Well, that would just be counter to everything we're learning there, I think.
And he was like, "Do you want to kiss Catwoman?" And she said, "Not until we're married." And that was his dream.
That's the end of KnightQuest.
And then
that was the real quest.
Then he woke up and he made out with a cardboard cutout.
Ooh.
The cardboards reminded me of the scene in the first Men in Black movie.
Yes, I had that too.
I don't know that movie well enough to remember that, but
where Will Smith is only
yes,
shoots the little girl who's got the metaphysics books or whatever it is.
That's right, yeah. Well, because there is a shot, but there's just like a regular civilian woman there, and I was like, I hope he's also shooting her.
I really like Catwoman's like yellow cat eyes. Like anytime she's in darkness, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Robert Wilde just mentioned that too. Yeah, I love that. I love that bit.
No, that stuff when we play with it in comics is really fun.
Some of this Catwoman stuff is fun, but it goes on too long. I think it's an issue longer than it needs to be. Yeah. That panel is weird. Just that big Catwoman smile. I don't understand that. That's strange.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like the Catwoman story is probably my fourth favorite of KnightQuest, but also if it was in anything else, it wouldn't be anywhere near the best part of it.
Yeah. Well, we're into volume 2 here. I don't think we'll have anything like as much to say about this back half besides the Joker story. So let's get into this, and then and we've already talked a little bit about some of the later stuff. We're already at 2 hours. I said this wouldn't be as long as Nightfall. It will be now, almost assuredly. My apologies, guys. But let's see what we can do with this back half. So I love Director Joker. I think that look is just great, and I want to cosplay it now that my hair is that long. I really do. And I especially, because he's got a lot of fun props. I'm like, I could get like a megaphone, and then later on he's got the hat that's got the bat symbol with the slash through it. And I was like, I want that. Like, that's great.
Well, and director Joker gives us our favorite thing cap, which is Joker.
I don't think this is the first place Joker appears. Though.
I don't think so either.
I think that's
I just mean like it shows up.
It
I don't
does.
think this is the first place. The first place I ever saw that was Going Sane.
Yes. But actually, that's after this,
I feel
though,
like
isn't
that's
it?
after this, yeah.
Okay,
But
maybe this does introduce Joker, but I thought that was before this. I thought that was in the 80s somewhere.
I'm sure it's a thing that comes up here and there.
Speaking of, he looks exactly like Jack Nicholson at the top of the page there.
I don't have that.
I just got to throw that out there.
Kind of does.
He's got very much that 89 face.
He's got like this part. This is very Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, but so's the mouth. I guess the thing is, I've seen a lot of artist renderings and stuff of Jack Nicholson from that movie, and that's how they tend to draw it. Like,
oh, okay. See, I'm looking at it as like his face is too pointed for Jack Nicholson, but that's fair.
Well, two out of 3 agree, so we're right.
2 out of 3 ain't bad according to Meatloaf. So there you go.
Anyway, Austin, I know you really liked this this section, so why don't you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, so this is very much just a traditional Batman story. Just Joker shows up. He's like, I'm going to make a movie, and my movie's about killing Batman. And he kidnaps a producer, and the producer's like, that's a great idea. We're losing money right now. Do you know how much money we'll get?
He doesn't even care that he's kidnapped, that Joker puts him in a cell. He's just making phone calls on his cell phone.
Yeah, no, this is Warner Brothers desperate right now. We got no money. Sure, we'll help you kill someone.
Kareem, is that too insane, or does the satire work? Because I kind of dug it.
I think the satire works. I think this is the best flavor of the piece so far. This is definitely my favorite part of it. Like the death of Batman. I remember you like texting me like the poster and things like that.
It's so great.
I
It's
really
so good.
miss. I think Austin alluded to it at the beginning. I really miss random chaos Joker, because every Batman story has to be like this like grand thing that the Joker is doing, where it's like him and Batman just ending their relationship, and I just miss the Joker doing random stuff and messing with Batman.
Well, what's funny is he does want to
like,
kill him here, unless he just assumes he's going to lose. Because there is some talk about that at the end with Gordon, where he's like, I don't understand their relationship.
Yeah.
No, this fits in with like classic Joker stories like Laughing Fish or like Joker's 5-Way Revenge, where it's just he's just doing things.
Yeah.
And he's like silly.
Yeah, this is another take on like the Joker hijacks a TV station, broadcasts everywhere. Those are some of my favorite Joker stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, and the Nightfall bit with Joker and Scarecrow is, I think, one of the best comic book villain team-ups of all time. So it's awesome that Joker comes back and he also gets one of the best stories in KnightQuest.
He seems almost more lucid here than he did in that section, where like he's really far gone in Nightfall. I don't know what he is doing. And here he like obviously he's insane, but like I'm tracking his dialogue a little better. Like
so I have this thing with the Joker. Grant Morrison has this thing where the Joker literally changes his personality every couple of years, and like he has like a different role. And like sometimes he's a serial killer, sometimes he's a prankster, sometimes, and I think that works. Like I said, like tracking these characters like that. So I'm fine. Like I said, like I'm fine with the random Joker thing.
That's a good point. I guess I'm just liking this one a little bit more than the last time we saw him. I guess his role here, although he kind of comes to it on accident, because I'm pretty sure he doesn't know that it's a different Batman. Until the reveal, because there's a place where he's like, oh wait, that's not actually Batman. I don't think he's playing that up. I don't think he knew until that point. But his role here ends up being like kind of exposing truth through film, which is fun because he's doing it in the most like gratuitous, least common denominator possible way, where he is not actually trying to make a real movie. He is doing what a lot of like awful blockbusters do, which is just building it around set pieces, and you're not true to any characters, and you're not even planning out very much until you start shooting. And Dixon gave me one of the greatest gifts in comics here, which is I get to watch the Joker murder Siskel and Ebert for critiquing his narrative style. It's one of the coolest, most fun things I've ever seen in a comic book. Because I don't know if they knew about it. I know they would have loved it.
Well, that's a big thing they complained about with Godzilla 98, where they were like, you put us in your movie and you didn't even kill us. It's so lame.
Did they say that?
Yeah, because there's a part in their review where they're like, oh, it was cool we were in it though, right? No, they didn't kill us. Oh yeah, you're right. That is really lame.
It was really in vogue to do like cameos with them, and I love that they're not named. Like, it's obviously them, and he's got a really good voice for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the criticisms they're making, the way they argue with each other, and then the points where they actually agree with each other. You're like, oh, Dixon has watched quite a bit of Siskel and Ebert on television. Like, this is exactly the way. I'm a big fan of them, and this is exactly the way they operate. And if they were kidnapped and forced to help the Joker make a movie, these are the criticisms they would be lobbing at him. And it's wonderful. It's so absurd, but then it gets twisted. But it's still really fun. It's like the Catwoman story is trying really hard to still say fun, and it's not working. It finds that balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And I love this poster, and I want to print it and put it on my wall.
Well, this is...
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just love the fact that it was like story by the Joker, music by the Joker, script by the Joker. Like,
and I love that it's got the Superman movie tagline, where it's like, "You will believe a Batman can die." But I think in that way, I think this Joker is very reminiscent of the Nightfall one, where when he and Scarecrow are working together, Scarecrow's like, we're gonna bring the city down to fear, and Joker's just kind of like, no, let's just have fun with things and like be really goofy. And I think he still has that here, even though he's now the only one that's orchestrating the plan.
Yeah, and it is a pretty elaborate plan. But I like how ambiguous it is. I can't actually tell for sure if he expects Batman to die.
I don't think so. I think it's just another Joker plot where he's like, we're going to have fun today. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to throw a woman out of a window just like Robin.
How about that reveal that she was in on it? I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. Yeah.
Oh, the other great thing about this poster is all the... is all the like coerced critics that are like, I got a gun pulled on me, so I have to say this movie is good. Like that stuff's hilarious.
Stop punching me. 4 stars.
I need this on my wall. I'm sure it would be illegal to print it and blow it up. I'm gonna do it anyway.
You should just zoom in and print it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of the movie parody stuff is really fun.
Yeah,
they throw in a ton of things.
Yeah, he doesn't miss any opportunity with that stuff, right?
Yeah. You know my favorite just weird thing with that is the that Universal Monsters cover that we passed. On the cover, it's Frankenstein, Wolfman, and the Mummy, but in the issue, it's not the Mummy; it's Phantom of the Opera, and I think that's really funny. That just for whatever reason, just one of them got switched out for the cover.
I loved the Alan Smithy thing being the big tip-off.
Yeah. No, that's really fun.
I didn't need it explained because I know what that is, but I don't have a problem with the fact that it was explained because not everybody's going to know that. Joker has so many great looks in this.
Yeah.
Like, I want to cosplay the white suit too.
That's got to be like Dark Knight Returns, right? They're like, he's got the big white suit in that.
Is it going too far to say this might be one of my I mean, I can't say new, but I don't think I'd read this before. This is one of my new favorite Joker stories. I had so much fun with this.
Yeah, it's fair.
Oh,
Like
then
I
you
said,
get the
it's
giant
a very
piano.
classic Joker. And I miss stuff like this in Batman comics.
Me
Yeah.
too. There's a part where they're knocking down a miniature Gotham City, and it reminds me of Mask of the Phantasm.
Yep.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I thought we were gonna do something like that, and then the giant Godzilla foot comes down.
Yeah, that was great. No, it's
took it from
so
this.
much fun. And the social commentary and the satire is really good, but it doesn't get in the way. It's not in your face or anything.
No, and it's as silly as the rest of the book, where it's like the producer's like, we're in prison, like this is Hollywood.
Yeah, I think the coolest
It works.
angle was here's the ways in which Hollywood is as messed up as Gotham City.
Mhm.
And Joker even has a
yeah.
line about it where he's like, I left Gotham, I went to Hollywood, and I felt right at home. Like, that's great.
Well, and that was what I said when we did the Batman commentary, was that I want like that for the sequel of the Batman. We have Clayface and what's her face, Julie Madison, who's an actress in the comics, and you kind of delve into that stuff.
Ooh, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, and then you can have director Joker.
Yeah, but, that version's not going to be this much fun, probably.
You will disagree when you finally see it, and Joker makes his big screen debut.
So yeah, some of the rest of this, I'm not going to have a ton to say about. These were kind of throwaway stories, some of them. This one was more of the kind of child abuse thing. Did we really have to have a story called Rosemary's Baby with a woman named Rosemary? Did we really do that?
It's super distracting after the movie story.
Yeah, good call.
It's like, here's all the movie stuff, next one. And it's like every single panel, they're like, and I was looking for Rosemary's Baby. And Rosemary's Baby was sold on the market. And Rosemary's Baby. And I'm like, it's distracting. Like, you're taking me out. Stop.
Going back to the Hollywood Joker plot for a minute, Thomas Lowell makes a good point. He says, this is the villain plot from Rocketeer.
I still need to see that.
Oh, you should. I like this page a lot, with Gordon looking up at the
it's a good one.
kind of stylized
great,
bat
yeah.
signal.
It's like Batman Returns, where it's on the wall.
I like that one.
You like what? Which one?
That one.
I think the big takeaway from this story is supposed to be Asbat getting a nerve struck by Rosemary saying you should help me and have compassion, because after all, everybody has a mother, and his having never even really thought about his mom before. And I think that's one of the things that's supposed to kind of spur him on and start making him think more like Bruce Wayne in the Batsuit. That's really the only takeaway I got from this story. It's really just about the ending, where he's inching a little bit closer to being a human being that cares about people.
Yeah, and the mother thing, I think, is done way better in Starlin's Batman with Jason Todd, where Jason Todd's whole thing in that is that he's like very empathetic towards women because his mother walked out on him, and that's like a big thing across that entire run. And then obviously it leads to death in the family, where his mom leads him to die.
Austin, would you talk about this page, please?
Yes, how can Batman hold a baby with knives? So I already think his fingers are really silly because I don't know how they work. But how can you pick up a baby?
There was a line about this that I thought was hilarious. Oh, this is it. It's so small and fragile, jerking around like some tiny dinosaur. Kareem, if you wrote that simile in the writer's workshop, I would write word choice next to it.
I'm pretty sure, Kareem, if you wrote that in the writer's room, Cap would throw a book at you.
He'd be glad that we weren't physically in the same room. Like some tiny dinosaur, I feel uneasy, awkward, afraid of hurting it. Yeah, you should! You've got knife fingers!
Yeah, if I were this Batman, I would feel uncomfortable and awkward to pick up a cup of coffee.
Much less a child!
Cap would be a Fletcher from Whiplash, just like, what are you writing?
Oh my god, I want to make that parody now. That'd be great.
Terrifying.
Like a whole
That-
pen is mightier than the sword kind of thing.
That's
I
gonna be in your
make
movie.
writers like write they can't put their pencils down, and then they wind up with like these massive calluses and they're bleeding everywhere while they're just yeah, that'd be great. I'm gonna make that
It's like
movie.
the writing from the 5th Harry Potter, where when you write it, like carves into your hand.
I was thinking that as I was saying it. Yep, I had that thought. So this is the place where the two
The two ghosts fight each other,
Yeah,
which
the
is
two
maybe
ghosts,
a little too silly even for
It is.
this. I don't know.
Yeah, the Azrael father and the Saint Dumas fighting in his head. Does it matter to you guys what is really happening with the hallucination of his dad? Like, it's played ambiguous where it's like, is he going kind of crazy? Is it something to like? Is it supposed to just be a manifestation of his conscience? Like, that's how I was kind of reading it. Does it matter what it actually is? Because I can't decide. That's another thing that makes it feel very TV, right? Is when we manifest these feelings as characters and they're talking to us.
I think it's necessary because they're trying to dissect what makes Batman Batman. So I guess it's the vengeance kind of thing versus the honorable do the right thing. But it's laying it on really thick. Where it's like, okay, we get it.
At least it's consistent. It's laying everything on that thing.
Well, this is like the melodrama stuff that I think Batman can absolutely have. Like, it's the same way as like Batman talking to his parents in Mask of the Phantasm, where he's like losing an argument against their gravestone. Except here we're actually seeing like he's talking to them as opposed to a gravestone. The only thing I think gets silly is where they start fighting in that page. That's where it's like, this is maybe a little too silly.
And then he kills him, and then he comes back.
Yeah, that's maybe like the one step too far where I'm like, I don't really need an action scene with them.
Yeah, well, and that's where it starts to get really awkward, and you're taken out, and you're thinking too much about what it physically is, because when you have, like I said, on television we do this a lot, where you'll have like a manifestation of conscience like that, and then but the problem is he's already got the programming manifesting and talking to him. So it's not just like a regular person doing this. It's somebody that's already got something stuck in his head doing that. So it's real muddled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
But real quick, one thing, because I can't stop going back to Bane, and I know Bane's gone now. But one thing that's kind of interesting now that we're seeing his father manifest like this is, to Austin's point that you can do this kind of melodrama in Batman, and I thought this was going too far with Bane. But isn't it kind of interesting that Bane has a like hallucination or a vision of a big bat creature that shows up and motivates him to go to Gotham and fight Batman and try to be like, the take over, be like the Kingpin of Gotham or whatever, just to prove that he can do it. And then you have the same kind of thing happening with Azrael, but it's like his father, like Batman's father, spurring him on to be Batman. I just think there's kind of an interesting parallel there.
That is true, yeah. Well, my main issue with the Bane Bat thing is that it's just kind of like a watered down version of the Spider thing in Kraven's Last Hunt.
And you brought that up with Nightfall, and I agree with you. And I don't actually like that. I don't think it makes any sense. I think it's so easy that it's a bat. Mm-hmm. Because he's never been to Gotham, he doesn't know Batman is there. So then that makes it like Providence or Destiny or something. And I don't like that, because I think
maybe
it's
like
really
a Rorschach test where he just sees a bat, like Batman Forever.
He just sees it's obviously a bat.
Like a demon thing.
I also like that right after the Rosemary thing, he immediately starts saving children.
Yeah, and I thought that school bus issue was pretty fun.
It's
Uh,
good.
yeah, I think the second half of the Crusade is way better than the first half. Though I agree with you, the abattoir stuff maybe goes on too long,
Oh,
but
I
I
was
think
bored to tears until I finally got to the friggin' point.
but I think some of those individual stories are better than what we had before, with the exception of what is my least favorite thing in this, which is the like Three Stooges '90s punk edition thing. That was the biggest like, oh, I don't
Why
want
does
to
the
read
guy
this.
with his
This is
shirt
homework.
off uh have a bullseye on his chest?
Yeah, that's another thing he was like. He was like Bullseye too.
It was like, why is Sid Vicious walking around going nyuk nyuk nyuk? I'll poke your eyes. It
Uh,
was so weird.
This story
this guy
feels
was
so
weird.
indulgent.
This was a choice.
Oh yeah, where we get Johnny Cage. I forgot about this.
Yeah, Joe Public. So this guy wants to be a hero. He got powers from an alien that bit him. Yeah, an alien bit him. I don't
And
even
it's-
remember what his power is. What does he do?
He like absorbs other
Oh,
people's
that's
power. Yeah. But that alien bite thing is weird because in I think the next storyline you get that character created by Doug, whatever his name is,
Hank.
who yeah, and it like flashes back to his origin. He's the big demon guy, and it's like, I was bitten by this giant robot thing,
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, that's kind of weird. Like for a second, I was like, is this the same guy? No, I guess not.
These are parts of the story where my eyes just gloss over, and I skipped a lot of that stuff.
Come on,
Yeah.
you gotta do the homework, Kareem. No, I had a hard time not skipping some of this, honestly. And it seems kind of convenient, kind of easy that we introduce this random guy who's wanting to be a hero, and Batman's telling him he probably shouldn't do that. And he's going to go up against Corrosive Man, so that we have from the very beginning, you can totally tell where this is going to go, because it's obvious the power that cancels out the other power.
Absolutely. It's like in a spy thing where it's like, here's your gadget, and you're like, okay, well, obviously that's gonna factor in.
I like this shot in the rain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
No, I
rain.
think the art in general is really good in this. There's a lot of great full page spreads and panels like that.
One thing I got to give it is
Damage to it. That looks cool.
yeah, good call. When I'm bored with the story, I'm not bored with the art.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
like
I
what
think
you
I
said,
complained
it's
about
a
that
bit more
more last
consistent.
That's fair.
And in the 90s, it was all about art over story, but the art was very often not that great. So it's kind of nice that in this particular case, it at least sort of worked. Like if the point is just really cool pinups you want to put on your wall, even though we're making fun of the suit, yeah, a lot of it looks really good.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
impractical and ridiculous, and he should never pick up babies, but it looks really good.
And there's obviously like cheesy stuff and corny stuff in this. But I'd much rather read Nightfall than read like Clone Saga or something like that from the 90s. It's just like or Carnage, whatever, Maximum Carnage.
DC weathered the 90s a lot better
Look,
than Marvel
you
did.
need to you just keep your opinions about Maximum Carnage to yourself, Kareem.
Oh, did I step on your toes a little bit?
No, it's not good, but I still love it. I have way too much nostalgia for Maximum Carnage. I go back to that every so often. It's so much fun. It's really stupid. Hey Austin, have you ever had this thought?
Yeah,
I
have.
Oh, good. We can move on now. No, I've never thought about this before. But I love the first two stories for Batman versus Predator. We needed Asbat versus Predator because he kind of is just wearing a Predator suit.
There was a point, I forget what it was that he said, but he says something, and I'm like, this feels like he's gonna fight Predator in this issue, and I know that he can't, but I forget what the line was, but there was like a specific line in a panel where I'm like, this is where we get Asbat versus Predator.
Don't you wish we had that?
Yeah, that would have been cool.
It would look really cool.
I just like Predator anything, so yeah.
Oh, hey,
Slash
look,
would be
Robin's back.
Have Predator kill those stupid 90s Three Stooges.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, these guys. And the stupid Doug Menk character, this red guy that literally no one cares about.
Yeah, I really don't. I'd rather read more of like the Corrosive Man. The Corrosive Man reminded me of I know I always say, if I don't go to Star Trek, I'm going to go to Tick. But Corrosive Man reminds me of a villain in animated Tick that I always thought was really funny called the Indigestible Man. Because he has a power that hardly ever comes up. Like, he just can't be digested. So if there happens to be a giant monster villain that he needs to go inside and do something to on the inside, he's very useful, and and he gets used against Dinosaur Neil. But anyway, he reminded me of the Indigestible Man.
How? One of these people is made of acid, and the other just can't be eaten.
I guess just because it's like the opposite of Indigestible Man. I don't know why it reminded me of that.
That's like being like, I saw this guy Magneto. He's really cool. He reminded me of this guy, Parasite. They're really similar.
No, I think it's because they both have stupid names.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you're just going for names.
Maybe that's why it reminded me of him. I don't know.
Fair enough.
They really.
See, now you got me feeling stupid for bringing this up. Anyway, I'm sorry, what, Kareem?
They really threw these corny villains at us.
Yeah, and you're right, they are Three Stooges. Like, I don't know why this is supposed to be funny.
Yeah, because they do like all the bits where like they do the like nyak 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 and
Yeah,
like
the
poking the eyes and
poking
like,
the eye. Yeah,
they do like all that stuff, and like two of them look like Three Stooges and the other one's just like generic punk man.
with a bullseye.
Yeah, exactly. It's so weird.
No, these two issues are very forgettable.
And that's where we're trying to do that fun stuff in that Joker story, and it's not working at all.
So, did you guys like the Clayface stuff?
Yeah, this is probably my second favorite story in this, just because I really like that Clayface. This is the only story I remembered offhand with this, where I was like, oh, I didn't remember the Clayface baby thing is here.
Oh yeah, I had definitely never read this.
It's not like amazing or anything, but I thought it was fun enough. And I don't know, I really like Peyton Payne Clayface.
I thought the two of them were like surprisingly had chemistry, and I kind of bought them together, and I thought that they were pretty sympathetic, and I like that they don't lose what makes them villains. Like they're still kind of bad, but there's a relative morality to them. That I kind of wanted to see them succeed, at least on the level of just being allowed to be left alone and raise their clay baby. I don't understand how the clay baby works at all.
But it's genuinely wholesome. It's like we gave birth to a lump of clay, and we're gonna love him.
And now somehow he's just a normal kid.
Oh, there's like a throwaway line where Abattoir is like, your mother taught you shape-shifting, didn't he, boy?
Oh, that's what it was, yeah. God, this is the beginning of the Abattoir stuff.
As it does.
I think I partly hate Abattoir just because his name is weird to say.
Well, isn't that the, you know what I kept thinking of, Cap?
Yeah.
The Watchmen line where Rorschach is doing his journal thing, and he's like an abattoir full of weird children or something like that.
Oh,
I don't remember that line. Yeah,
maybe that's why. Yeah, because that's his MO. He's kidnapping kids. What is?
And all of the abattoirs and politicians will look up and say, "Save us."
Yeah, Abattoir is just kind of a dull villain, and we have to live with him for too long. And it's another one of those things where he's kind of just an idea that matters in eventually Jean-Paul is going to let him die, and that's a big turning point for him. But it could have been anybody, and it didn't need to be a character that I followed forever. And he's weirdly too much like Austin. Who's the spider totem villain?
Oh.
Oh my god!
I can't think of his name right now.
I blocked that out of my mind.
But he's like that guy, at least during is it Spider-Verse, where he's going around and trying to kill all the spiders and like gaining their life force. He's like that, but like with his own family members.
Yeah, I don't read Spider-Verse because it's trash, but but yeah, definitely. I like Abattoir as like, we need like a horror serial killer villain, and he's like Michael Myers in Halloween 6. He's like, I'm gonna kill all my family members.
I just didn't even understand it.
But it just kind of goes on too long, like you said, and I do like that he's not the main villain of every issue through there. He's just kind of like in the background through most of it.
That's true, but none of the other villains are especially compelling either.
No, and we get the stupid villains that I was complaining about earlier.
That's...
And we get that, but we get the Clayface stuff, and I like that. Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right.
I agree with Austin, though. I think it's like I said, the ideas are there because he's kind of like Asbat's Joker, where Asbat is being consumed by Gotham, and Abattoir consumes Gotham. Really, like he literally doesn't he eat people and stuff like that. And then he has
I thought he just killed them in something he thinks he gets their life force. I don't understand him. I don't know if he's supernatural in some way. I don't get that character.
Well, I think there's maybe a line about him drinking blood and stuff, so maybe.
Yeah,
I can't remember. So much of it's bleeding together.
That was a good word choice. But I also have the Kareem thing where my eyes are glazing over when I get to this villain, and I'm having a hard time keeping track of any of it.
I have that too, except the ending where it's like it's meant to be important.
Yeah.
He lets him fall in, and it's like the opposite of the Joker, where Batman like accidentally like drops the Joker and he falls into the vat of acid.
Yeah.
But I thought they were trying to do something with that, but
well, and here's what's really sad about it. It's this conscious choice where he goes, I'm trying to be my own man. I'm trying to like be proactive and move forward on my own terms. So I'm not going to do what either the angel or the devil tell me to. And what he doesn't get is he's still going to wind up on one side or the other.
Yeah.
There's not a third path exactly. Like, yes, life is shades of gray, but you're further to the vengeance side than the hero side if you just let the bad guy fall and die. And pretty Gordon is spot on when he says that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's like a place where I'm maybe differing for you guys, because like I really like that bus issue. I like hate the 2 issues I think after it with the stupid Three Stooges, and then I really like the Clayface issues, and I really like the ending of that. So ultimately, like I like the Abattoir stuff a lot more than like any of the early stuff with the twins or whatever the guy's name with M, the robot guy was.
Oh yeah, yeah, the guy that gets all of his quotes from a Reader's Digest.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of that just played better for me in general, where it was like, oh, this is some of the better stuff we've had in this series. And maybe it's just, I settled in and it was like, okay, this is all kind of lackluster, so it maybe looked more impressive from that point of view.
That's fair.
And it might just be because it sounds like you guys hit a certain point where it started to become harder to read. Well, I had the exact opposite reading this, where it was like it was a chore from the beginning, and as I went, there was more things that I was latching on to.
Yeah, I definitely had the opposite experience with it. So these last few issues we've already kind of touched on a little bit, and we're gonna want to wrap up here, so we can just go through these real briefly. But I think we all agreed this was one of the more solid issues, one of the standouts with the Two-Face and Gordon showdown. I felt like this was a little bit like this is kind of Peter David in a weird way, going back to Killing Joke, kind of, because he's got because it's a villain like making things super personal for Gordon, and in like kidnapping Sarah Essen. I mean, I know it's kind of a different situation, but it reminded me of that a little bit. And then I liked,
yeah.
and then I liked that by the end, it turns out that he's just trying to get confirmation that that Batman is not Batman.
When he's proven Joker's point, because he gets Gordon to snap pretty quickly.
Pretty fast.
He's like, I'm not going through that again.
I'm just gonna throw you off.
I was thinking earlier, Bruce is bound to a wheelchair now, and isn't Barbara like Oracle now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's kind of weird that we didn't get that
You think
interaction.
we'd do something with that?
Yeah, I don't know what Oracle's doing at this point, because she first appears in Ostrander Suicide
Here's
Squad.
that guy. Here's...
And her and Bruce Wayne, like Batman, are very estranged at that point. So I don't know if they've come back together at this point or like what's going on with that. But that is a good call.
Yeah, and I'm a lot more familiar with what she's doing in No Man's Land. That was kind of my main introduction to Oracle when I was a kid, or I guess in junior high or whatever.
Yeah, because this is what, 93?
93,
Yes.
94.
Oh no, it has to be after 94 because 94 is Jurassic Park.
Yeah, so it's...
So
yeah, I thought you
this
just
is
meant Nightfall in
probably,
general, but this stuff is in the middle to end of 94, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is probably like a bit after Ostrander Suicide Squad, but
I'm kind of zooming through this because we've talked about a lot of this
yeah, of course.
with Avatar and all that. Kareem, you made a terrific point about Reverse Joker. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, I think that's his like final. Oh, that was a brutal panel too.
It
I remember
is.
That death thing in general is brutal. I don't know how it works, but it's awesome.
And why would you go through all that elaborate stuff just to torture somebody?
Because it's the edgelord 90s way to do it.
Yeah.
You'd be as shocking and gruesome as possible. And a 12-year-old kid is going to be like, I'm not supposed to be reading this. This is amazing. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in Spawn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
then
there's
they blast their Nirvana. And they're like, nobody gets me.
I think the Gordon Asbat showdown is probably like my favorite just exchange in the whole thing.
Yeah, it might be the best scene.
Yeah.
It's really dramatic. I really buy both sides of the conversation. I like that they get into the morality and the politics of the choice that he's made in letting that guy die, and the difference between like playing by the rules and being in the system versus just right and wrong. Like he Asbat says, well, Batman has always been above the law. I don't have to follow the same rules you do. And Gordon says, yeah, but the difference is the old Batman cared.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
that's
this Batman doesn't even understand the issue.
Yeah, that's obviously the missing component of Asbat, and it's the scene sort of, it almost like rhymes a little bit. Like I guess this is the first scene, but like there's a scene in No Man's Land, I think it is, where stuff is happening between Bruce and Gordon, and Batman literally like takes off his mask and is like, look at me, and then Gordon like turns around and is like, you're more than that, like I don't want to see stuff. And I thought it just paralleled really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it really does, because it's basically that's the best scene of No Man's Land too, and it's basically Gordon saying, because you're so invested in this relationship and it doesn't move forward very often, so like when it does, it's a big deal. And you're right, this is a lot like that, but it's Gordon telling Batman, like, I need you to be my Batman, and I know you're not, and now he's having to accept that. And that's really difficult, because there's all this proof that Gotham is so far gone. You have to have Batman, and he's fighting a mayor that likes this more brutal version and a public that thinks that he is ineffectual and that the cops are, inept. And this is what he has to work with.
Yeah, and it's the thing that we always talk about, Cap, with DC Comics, where it's their myths compared to Marvel. And it's like, I said it earlier, like, heavy is the head that wears the cowl. There's a reason why Bruce Wayne is the only guy that can do this stuff. So it sort of, reminded me of that, of like, this is what Gotham turned this guy into.
Yeah.
And his Batman slowly looks more and more like Satan.
and he is more like, Jason Todd, Damian Wayne, where it's like, this guy is not supposed to be Batman.
Well, and I like how relatively, like, from his perspective, Jean-Paul Valley's actually come a long way, because he starts with, I kind of just want to kill all the bad guys so they'll never kill again, and because I've got this programming that says I'm the angel of vengeance, right? And then here, he's finally to a place where he says, I'm about preserving life like my hallucination of my father told me to. And he says, Gordon, like, you think I don't... He rescues Gordon. I think it's a little convenient that Gordon starts to fall off the ledge, but whatever. He rescues Gordon, and he says, I am here, Gordon, to preserve life, but like worthwhile life. Like, he says, decent human life. And Gordon, from his perspective, sees this guy as completely gone. Like if he can't make the distinction where the point is just preserving life, period, he has no business being here. But if you're looking at it from, and this is where it actually pays off okay, watching Valley as a protagonist through this, even though it's such a slow burn and it takes forever and there's a lot of chasing our tail. Finally, you see, okay, from his perspective, he's made a lot of progress. But this is why he can't be Batman, because you don't know if he can ever make the progress he'd have to be worthy of the Batsuit. And you can say, well, maybe nobody ever is, but Bruce Wayne should not have given Jean-Paul Valley the Batsuit. And as interesting as it sometimes is to see him in this, I said this with Nightfall, it was kind of a hard pill to swallow that was the choice. That's who Bruce decided to put in the Batsuit. It's even harder to buy after some of the stuff you see him do here, where you're like, really? Like, that's what you... Okay.
Yeah, and it's maybe weird, too, after Jason Todd, where Jason Todd in the Starlin run, right before Death in the Family, like, he goes off and he kills somebody, and it, like, the entire thing blows up, and it, like, causes this huge chain of reaction where there's, like, a big bloodbath that Robin causes, and it's almost weird because we're only like a few years after that, because that's 89.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I guess we talked about this with Nightfall, but like, who else would he pick besides Dick Grayson? I remember Dick being in more of this, and I don't know if he starts showing up in Night's End, but like, we've hardly seen him.
Yeah, I think he only shows up once, if I remember correctly.
He's Nightwing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's Bruce's whole thing in Nightfall is Dick's gone off and become his own man. Like, I'm not gonna ask this of him.
Right, and that does come up, and we have an explanation for it, but it just seems like he's taking too much of a risk by giving it to this guy instead.
No, I agree.
Anyway, anything else you guys want to talk about with this last arc? Because I feel like we've talked a lot about this the Gunhawk or whoever he is.
He's Cyclops, Bullseye, and Captain America.
Next, we're gonna finally get a turning point, Kareem.
Yeah, I thought this issue should have been it. Where in the issue before, he unintentionally kills somebody. I thought this was going to be the point where he like actually kills somebody.
Yeah, so did I.
And
this
then
is a very Spawn image. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now he's got like a solid cape he can just slice people with if he wanted to. This is where he should just start mowing people down.
And there's a point because they fall off the stairs together, and then there's that like kind of blurry page or panel where the cops are reading the rights. And I thought it was going to, because I was reading digitally, so I was going panel by panel, but I thought it was going to reveal that it was Batman, and that Gunhawk died like in that tackle down the stairs, and that this was going to be like the breakup point between Batman and the cops. And then when that wasn't it, I was a little bummed. I was kind of hoping that was the place we were going.
I hope the mayor finally gets his comeuppance, because this is that situation, right, where it's like you're palling around with the devil and you think you can control him, and I don't know why you think you can control this Batman.
I just hope the mayor is in a scene that it isn't just the same scene in Night's End.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just looking forward to Bane coming back.
Yeah, I don't think he comes back to what, Troika, I think is the story.
I was going to say, I don't think he's in Night's End, is he?
I don't think so. No, because the big climax that I remember is both Batman fighting in the Batcave. And that's kind of like where that story's building. I don't think Bane shows up again at all until later.
Oh, man. Well, I agree with Austin, man. Bane is just a plot device.
Yeah, it's kind of worse with the entire trilogy together, where you just kind of go, "Oh, Bane's immediately written off the second his one purpose is done."
I love Vengeance of Bane, though. I think it's so brilliant.
Well, I mean, I loved Bane. Like it was heartbreaking last year when we reread it, going back, and I had that experience with it because I always held up Nightfall as the good Bane story. And now it's just Batman and Robin because I love Bane in that movie. Bob, funky work.
Yeah, we did all of this when we did the Nightfall review, by the way.
Most portable Bane.
The aftermath stuff is Prodigal first. I forgot about that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And this is all like just after 0 Hour. You have Prodigal, and then you have Troika, and that's probably like we'll probably tackle both of those things.
Cool.
Yeah, I've never read either of them, so that'll be cool.
And we could throw in the one shot with Alfred's Return, because that's also kind of part of that where like he leaves during KnightQuest and then he finally comes back. But anyway.
Captain's amazing pitch before we started. He's like, "It's Bruce Wayne in a wheelchair. What else could it be about?"
Well, because I thought it was also 700 pages, and I was like, I don't know how you'd get that much story out of just Bruce Wayne's in a wheelchair.
Well, the one thing I know about the search is that they do like magic their way around the back break. Because I remember talking to somebody and I was like, "Isn't it crazy that Dark Knight Rises is less realistic than the comics?" And they were like, "Clearly you haven't read the search."
They're like, maybe not though. So we'll see what that's like when we finally get to it.
I'm like, oh well, it still took time. He didn't just get punched in the back and he was good.
So I think we're all in agreement. This is just a massive mixed bag, and you really don't have to read all of this. But we'd have to sit down and like jot out what things you absolutely need to look at with this, right? Like, I just don't think this is a great like one or two sitting kind of trade. I think you kind of want to skip around a little bit, or at least read it over a good long time.
Well, I think that's why I had the opposite of you guys, is that I read like the first few issues one day, and then I read 200 pages and the next day, and then after that it was spread out more. So I think maybe I had like too much of that kind of lackluster stuff all at once.
Well, and I had too much lackluster stuff at once because I had to read like almost the whole last trade today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe half of it.
I felt so burnt out.
That's yeah.
I read like 40 pages today and like 60 yesterday, and like a lot slower on that back half.
I had a little bit of the same thing with this that I had with Bruce Wayne Murderer, although I think it's better than that. But where there's just a lot of this side stuff that's really kind of inconsequential. But the difference is even though there's some weird like villain choices and stuff, when you get to the big revelations and the character turns and stuff, it is more satisfying and interesting. And when Bruce Wayne murder, I'm just constantly going, yeah, okay, but so what about that?
I do
Yeah.
after reading this, I'm like, I'm not gonna read Batman next. I'm gonna go jump to another character for a bit.
There's so much filler.
Yeah, exactly. Not good filler, because I love like the episodic stuff where you just have, just random villain of the week stories. But that was what was good about Nightfall. It was the best part of Nightfall for me.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's true, and some of the best stuff here is the kind of off the beaten path, like one or two issue things, but some of the other ones are just not that interesting, and a lot of the made up villains are kind of nothing.
Mhm.
Well, I think Austin was on point where he said it should have had a more central villain because the first part doesn't read like this. Like it really is. You're watching Bruce Wayne just break himself, and then he gets like actually broken by Bane. If they had like an antagonist in this, it would have focused it more because you just gloss over a lot of the stuff, and some of it's really good.
Mhm. Yeah, because that was what Denny O'Neil's Iron Man had that I really liked, is that you have Obadiah Stane not as a comic book villain, like a costume villain, but he's just kind of like manipulating things in the background, and it feels like we're building to something, and it's not just kind of like, we don't know what to do with this new Iron Man or Batman. Like, just here's stories.
Yeah, this does not have that rising action. It kind of feels like they were sort of written into a corner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah,
it's just here's a status quo. Here's him as Batman. Like deal with it.
Here's this blank slate character that doesn't even know who he is, and you have to write him for 750 pages. Okay. Anyway, well, guys, I'm sorry for keeping you up so late, but thanks so much for doing it,
That's always a pleasure.
for being
Yeah, it was
thorough.
great talking to you guys about this.
It's
I'll
always
see you guys
a
next
blast.
year for the search.
No, we will try really hard to do that more. Not too long after, if at all possible. If I can be remotely articulate this late at night. Anyway, thank you guys again. Thanks a lot for watching. If you're doing it live or after the fact, you guys are wonderful as well. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about this part of KnightQuest. We were real mixed on it. We didn't love it, but there's stuff to love, most assuredly. Especially that Joker stuff. That is killer 3-issue art.
Hell yeah.
You won't believe a Batman can die.
Did you just do the kite man thing? Was that on purpose?
No, don't say that. Oh.
All right, well, on that note, anyway, thanks a lot for being here. I was Captain Logan. We had Austin the Day Ghost.
I'm not saying anything after that.
And we had Kareem the Kareem.
Goodbye, geek evolutionaries.
Bye, everybody.